All right, King Killers, we're covering the Prelude through Chapter 1 for the Way of Kings, first book in the Stormlight Archive in this episode. We're going to start off by digging into Desolations, Heralds, and the Bleak opening to the Prelude. We'll discuss how bad a dude Szeth is as he lays waste to the king and his soldiers, and begin our analysis of Kaladin, one of my favorite characters of all time. We also talk about Taln's surprising relationship with torture, how quick I'd sell out Tim, who music spren look like, and Szeth's missed opportunity to prank Dalinar. So sit back and enjoy. All right, welcome back to the King Killer podcast. Welcome to a lot of you guys, as this is the beginning of our reread of The Way of Kings, the first book in the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. I am your humble hero, Dan, and I have with me Tremulous Tiny Tim, a.k.a. the terrified, traitorous Taint. How's it going, Taint?
I'm not terrified. And I don't know where anyone would ever describe me as traitorous.
That's what we all of us say about you. All of our friends and the listeners, they've adopted it. They don't even hang out with us in real life, and they adopted it independently on their own. Like everybody emails me like, so what's up with that traitorous Taint, the terrified traitorous Taint Tim?
Have I been wrong this whole this isn't real life? I thought this was real life.
No, this is not real life. This is internet.
I've been under illusion this whole time?
This is a podcast. This is fake life.
Oh, this isn't real. Okay.
No.
Well.
No. None of this time exists.
Well, that completely changes my perspective on this.
Yeah, real life just blanks out while we're doing this.
Well, maybe I should mix in some really, really strong drugs and alcohol because it's not real. So,
yes,
there's no risks, or the risks don't amount to much, at least.
Yeah, and so we're starting off. This is going to be our first episode into the Stormlight Archives. We're going to go through chapter by chapter, probably get through the two prologues, maybe get through chapter 1 and 2. We don't really know exactly how long the conversations are go, how much we're going to have to say since it's a new series. It's early on. We'll probably have a lot to say on the beginning stuff. So we're just going to kind of go through it and see how far we get. But as we go, we will be doing chapter by chapter and kind of going in depth and talking as much as we can about it and trying to pick it apart and really analyze everything. We don't go very surface level on when we cover these books. We go pretty in depth and really flesh things out. So that's what will be the goal of this as well.
This will be a little bit different, just to kind of set the table in the sense that I'm at like chapter 15 overall, first time reading through. You know, with King Killer Chronicles, you and I had both read the books all the way through multiple times. So it's a little bit different dynamic with this. So the world's very new to me. It's great. So far, I'm pretty into it. Anybody that's listening probably likes the books, I would imagine, you know.
Yeah, so, and if you didn't listen
to sell anybody.
If you didn't listen to the prologue to this coverage of this series, the prologue we did, I've read through both series or through the Stormlight Archives books twice, and I've read all the Cosmere books at least once. So I'm much more familiar with them than Tim. But Tim, as we go, we'll be putting these out every other week. So he's going to have 2 weeks in between recordings to read ahead. And so what we'll talk about, I won't spoil things he hasn't read for him, but hopefully he's able to kind of move through the books at a much quicker pace than the chapters that we're covering. So with each progressive episode, we're able to talk more and more and more about the books and the fuller scope of things. So eventually, you know, we'll be able to talk about all 4 books no matter where we're at, and we'll be able to analyze what's going on in conjunction with everything else that is going to happen in future books. So it's going to be a spoiler heavy podcast, but it'll be light on any kind of spoilers in the beginning because Tim's not, caught up yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the plan is I'll just continue to read forward as much as I can, and then when we're about to do an episode, I just go back and I reread. I listen through initially is what I'm doing on this, and then I'll go back and read through them. It's interesting how different it is for me personally, and I think it probably is for everybody to actually read the words on the page versus just listening to it. I mean, it's the same story, obviously. There's no real changes that I've seen, but there are certain things that, well, also it's the second time through, so they kind of come out with a bigger emphasis or a different type of an emphasis in some way. But yeah, it's good shit so far.
All right, so let's dive in. We got the very beginning of the book is the Prelude to the Stormlight Archive. In this chapter, we meet Kalak and Jezreen. There's the aftermath of this big battle. They go in this preordained spot where they had discussed where they were going to meet. There's 9 of these 10 people that have an oath pact to go to some place where they're going to be tortured. 9 of them decide, nah, we're not going to do that. And so we're going to get Kalak and Jezreen kind of discussing that and the breaking of this oath pact. So
yeah, I was going to say, it seems like is it Taln gets basically sacrificed.
Yeah, they
to be tortured,
dip out on him. So yeah, in the very beginning, it starts off with Kalak rounded a rocky stone ridge and stumbled to the top before the body of a dying thunderclast. The enormous stone beast lay in his side, rib-like protrusions from its chest broken and cracked. The monstrosity was vaguely skeletal in shape, with unnaturally long limbs that sprouted from granite shoulders. The eyes were deep red spots on the arrowhead face, as if created by a fire burning deep within the stone. They faded. So, like, you right off the bat, you're getting like, okay, there's this big battle, but not only is there this big battle, but there's this giant rock creature that's got a vague skeletal shape. That's just this enormous monster that is, laid on the ground dying. So immediately it's like, okay, well, this shit is not, this isn't just humans battling humans. There's some freaky shit going on.
Yeah, I mean, the world building, obviously we're in a completely different type of, at least from my experience, we're in a completely different type of world that I've never been in. There's, the desolation, I guess, is that this battle, or is that something that's bigger? Because this prelude builds things out really large. It seems like very over-encompassing of the overall series, it feels like.
Yeah, so the Desolations are these events that keep happening. And I won't go and explain exactly what's happening because it is further explained as you go along. But there are these Desolations that keep happening where there are these battles, and you have these 10 people who are called the Heralds. And that's Kalak and Jezreen and Taln. They are battling this other group of figures, and like the rock monster, the Thunder class, that would be someone on the other side. So they're called Void Bringers, is what they're described as. Is so it's you got the Heralds and humans on one side versus the Void Bringers on the other, and these Desolations keep happening, and in between the Desolations, they're sent to another place where they are tortured the entire time by the Void Bringers, on a different plane.
And it sounds like that's part of the Oath Pact.
Yes.
Right? If they have this Oath Pact, they get tortured, but then their sword basically lives on.
The sword's different. Sure. But here's kind of like, so when the battle's done, they win, they go, their sacrifice is that their body is sent where the void bringers are sent, and they're tortured by them. And as long as they withstand the torture, the void bringers cannot get back. They can't get back to this world to start another desolation. So as long as they resist, the people left behind are safe from the Voidbringers. But they've been getting tortured and tortured and tortured and tortured for so long a period of time that they're breaking quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. So the desolations are happening sooner and sooner and sooner. So the people are having less of an opportunity to prepare and to rebuild and to build back up. And so it's just this complete annihilation of the planet. And then there are the break between desolations is getting shorter and shorter because these guys cannot withstand the torture anymore.
Well, and then they say, well, and I know we're kind of skipping around, but it goes with the territory. Ishar basically has this theory that, that as long as one of them is still bound to the Oath Pact, that might be enough. It sounds like they're also looking for reasons because, like, as you said, their will is starting to break here with all these torture bout sessions. So, yeah, it seems like this is what this prelude does, is it describes a literal change within that group, and that's going to change the way the world works moving forward, it seems.
Yes.
And then they mentioned the Radiance. So, again, yeah, it's big, and it's kind of like a lot of it's just kind of like, okay, take a lot of it in. It's kind of setting the stage for like this, how this world is to a degree.
So, well, yeah, let's flesh it out. Like, I mean, so you got, he's walking through the battles, and then, he mentions even after all these centuries, seeing a Thunder class up close make Kalak shiver. So he's been alive for centuries, and the beast's hand was as long as a man was tall. So you get kind of the scope of how big these things are. And he'd been killed by hands like those before, and it hadn't been pleasant. So this is something like when he's coming back, they can get killed, and then they're they go back.
They're getting immortals.
Yeah. And then so when he's walking through, he's seeing all the less frequently past cracked, oddly shaped hollows where Thunderclass had ripped themselves free of the stones to join the fray. So these Thunderclass are actually coming from the rock on the ground and breaking free and becoming, sentient. And then you have many of the bodies around him were human, many were not. Blood mixed, red, orange, violet. So you're seeing that it's not just humans, that there's different races in the battle. So there's a lot of world building in this beginning between, you're seeing that there's these mortals, you're seeing that there's multiple different humanoid species, but they're not all just human. Some got red blood, some orange, some violet. Then you have, the big giant stone monsters. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different elements that are getting introduced in the beginning. And
but it really sets a tone with there's moans of pain, cries of grief. They did not seem like the sounds of victory. So it's like there's a pretty ominous tone to it, like as if they win or don't. It's it seems pretty ominous.
It's showing that them winning. I mean, they won, but they were annihilated. I mean, so they're left with nothing. I mean, that's why it doesn't seem like a victory. They got. These battles are just annihilating the world. And so it's almost bringing the destruction of the world every time these desolations are happening.
Well, and so we get all these different titles, like the Dustbringers had done their work well. But yeah, and also to that desolation, but I survived, Kalak thought. I actually survived this time. So I mean, we already have that reiterated that he's died before. But yeah, it's pretty bleak. This whole thing is pretty fucking bleak.
Yeah, so when they talk about the Dustbringers, they say smoke curled from the occasional patches of growth or heaps of burning corpses. Even some sections of rock smoldered. The Dustbringers had done their work well. Obviously, we'll learn what Dustbringers are when they're talking about Knights Radiance. That's a segment of Knights Radiance or Dustbringers, but we'll learn about what those groups are as we go along. But Dustbringers are a branch of Night Radiance. So when he mentions Night Radiance, he's also talking about Dustbringers, and obviously they are laying waste to shit. Like even some sections of rock smoldered. So I mean they're laying waste to shit. So, but yeah, he's like, I survived, and that was dangerous. He says when he died, he was sent back, no choice. When he survived the desolation, he was supposed to go back as well. Back to that place that he dreaded, back to the place of pain and fire. What if he just decided not to go? Perilous thoughts, perhaps traitorous thoughts. He hastened on his way. So you get that, when the desolations happen at the end of them, if he survives, he has to go back. If he dies, he goes back no matter what. And now he's at a breaking point now. You're getting that sense that these guys have been going through this for so long that they're just done. They can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It brings up a really interesting point. I mean, here it's the first page, and it's like this idea of duty, and having been brought to this place so many times, and then when they go into a little bit more detail about just how bad the torture is, and he's not alone. It's him. It also seems like Jezrien, who he's looking at him, the way he talks about it, it's almost like he's looking at him like, well, if you've reached this breaking point, you're thinking no one else has. You're thinking the other person maybe hasn't, and then he sees little signs that, oh, this guy has too.
Yeah, he's over there sitting there like, man, I'm a fucking pussy. I just can't fucking do this shit. And then he sees they're all willing to quit, and he's like, no, it ain't just me. Everybody's bowing out of this shit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so it's man, it's pretty brutal. And obviously it's kind of a funny thing what I was talking about a minute ago, like all these different titles and things. There's a balance that you have to accept, obviously, early on in a book. It's your first couple pages, you're not going to understand everything, but you still kind of like your mind's going in that direction of like, okay, so what's that? And then you're just accepting certain things while it comes in with the other dynamics. But tone says a lot. The situation that we're already getting with Kalak and Jezrien. I mean, it's becoming quite clear in just a page.
Yeah. And so he meets up with Jezrien, then he sees that there's 7 swords stood proudly here, driven point first into the stone. Each was a masterly work of art, flowing in design, inscribed with glyphs and patterns. He recognized each one. If their masters had died, the blades would have vanished. So there's 7 of the blades, that, and their masters obviously didn't die because the blades are still there. Then there's Jezrien and Kalak. So 9 of the 10 didn't die. And he says these blades were weapons of power beyond even shard blades. These were unique, precious. Jezrien stood outside the ring of swords, looking eastward. So, like, obviously, as you go along, you get some demonstrations of shard blades, especially once you get into section 2 or part 2, when you see Dalinar and Adolin and Elhokar fighting the big shell beast. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. But when they're fighting that, you see the shard blades. And so these things are, more than that, even more than that. They're shard blades, but they're more than shard blades. So they're different. They're like a different type of shard blade, basically, is what he's describing. And you get like what shard blades are at this.
You get it in the first chapter with what's his face, Szeth.
Yeah,
he wields a shard blade as well, and when he's fighting the king. So we get a piece of what this weapon is. Super great. I mean, I don't think it's too early to mention. I mean, Sanderson's crazy imaginative. Like what he does in the with the world and the weapons and the cultures and the physics involved. It's great, man. It's fun taking it all in, but then also trying to apply it, because he has a weird balance of like our own world. There's realities that apply in our world that apply here, and then completely different in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how he builds it.
Yeah, and then so Jezrien or Kalak goes up to Jezrien. And he's like, "What is this, Jezrien? Where are the others? Departed. You might call it a miracle. Only one of us died this time." Talonel, Kalak said. His was the only blade unaccounted for. Yes, he died holding that passage by the northern waterway. It says Talon had a tendency to choose seemingly hopeless fights and win them. He also had a tendency to die in the process. He would be back now in the place where they went between desolations, the place of nightmares. So one thing, like I when they talk about it, like you might call it a miracle. I think the reason he's saying you might call it a miracle is because it wasn't a miracle. It was fucking planned. And they intended for Talon to be the only one to go back, because otherwise their plan doesn't work. If they're saying like all of us, every one of us breaks, we can't do it anymore, but there's one dude that has not broke yet, and all this time he's never broke, and so let's send him back, and then we'll just chill and fucking go, kick back and relax, enjoy the sun, and let him.
This guy gets fucked. This guy gets screwed, man.
He can do the torture thing, and that's his thing. That's what he just likes.
Yeah, that's what he's into.
He never turns it down. He never complains.
Sadist.
He loves it. He loves it so much, and I think we should I feel like the best thing that we can do for him is to get out of his way, because we don't like it. We don't like torture. We think torture sucks, and we keep giving up, and he keeps losing all his fun because he gets pulled out with us. So this time we won't go. He gets all the fun torture he wants, that he loves. He just loves it so much. Torture. And then, we give him that gift. So we're really, when you think about it, we're really good. We're doing a really good thing here.
I feel like it's been maybe 20 years since I've seen this image, but people that would get all these piercings along their back and then literally hang from a ceiling. Oh, yeah. That's what I'm picturing with this guy, which is so weird to picture that. But I'm kind of going there because the imagery's in here. And if you're saying he's into it, the people that did that chose to do it.
Yeah.
It seems super ridiculously painful.
I don't know if they're doing it for like thousands of years, though. I think they're probably, like, let me do this for like 10 minutes.
There's some real...
let me down.
Yeah, there's some real... I don't know how you get to that point where you're that into pain and punishment. There's some real dirt in that closet, I think, and maybe that's Talon's thing. I don't know. I mean, that's what you're speculating on.
Yeah. They just gave him a great gift, but it's hard to fault like Clack and Jezrien, like when you hear what they were going through and what they're doing, and it's not just like this is happening every now and again. This is happening for years. They're years or centuries or how long between desolations until they give. And so
I don't know.
Fuck.
Obviously, I don't know if Sanderson really wrestles with this much as we go throughout, but it's an interesting question to pose early on, or at any time for your readers of like, well, someone's getting sacrificed, and like you said, you get it why Jezrien, Kalak, and them would choose to do it. But at the same time, someone's getting sacrificed and you're the one sort of pulling the trigger, or you're a part of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if you've ever read The Lottery. It's like that question of, if one person suffers, is it worth everybody else not suffering? So in this case, it actually gets quantified to a pretty nice degree where it's like, well, 9 of us don't. This one guy does. Better one than the rest. But it's like, well, does he deserve it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's a real dilemma. Obviously that's a real dilemma to pose early on.
And when you think about it, like they made this pact where all 10 of them have to go, and then, but if one breaks, then the desolation starts over again. And so like if you have 9 of them and they just keep breaking every time, it makes logical sense to be like, well, stop sending those 9, just send the one dude who doesn't break and give us, give everybody a chance. If you guys are what it doesn't really make a whole,
and then figure out
lot
what's
of
going
sense.
On here,
like,
right?
Yeah, like, I mean, if you're thinking about it, like if 9 keep breaking, and that is putting you ever closer and closer, where the desolations keep happening before the people have a chance to rebuild, and so it's just becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger problem each time, and the other group is getting closer to winning because the desolations are happening so close together. Then, like, I mean, you just see the aftermath of this battle. It's like, we won, but look at the fucking place. And he's like, this is one of the worst yet. And, these guys are getting even more reckless and dangerous that we're fighting. And so it's like, if we know we're going to fucking break and this dude's not, maybe it's the best thing to do. Now, you're going to also have that, are we given a big break, but because we, broke our pact, is that going to cause a bigger calamity down the line? But it sounds like, it wasn't going to fucking work. If they just kept going back and just kept giving up quicker and quicker and quicker, shit wasn't going to work anyway. So they had to try something different. So I don't really blame them that much.
It seems like eventually your hand is forced. If you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's not working, was Einstein's own quote. It's like, we got to,
But just keep doing it a little bit over and over and over again. Never stop. That's what Einstein did, and that's what that's what I say we do.
That's what he did. It seems early on to speculate this far, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So Sanderson is homaging Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, a very dark Groundhog's Day.
Right? Well, there's some darkness in Groundhog Day when he takes the dudes down the train tracks and whatnot.
Yeah, and he drops the toaster in the bathtub, and
there's nothing like lighthearted suicide. Yeah, they actually pull it off in the movie.
Yeah, yeah. There's some dark elements, but if you're gonna do dark elements, you bring on Bill Murray, and
I was about to say,
he will humor up the suicide.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people that can sell that, but he does sell it. It's one of the best.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, so I like this idea though. Kalak's found himself shaking. When did he become so weak? Jezreel, I can't return this time. Kalak whispered the words, stepping up and gripping the other man's arm. I can't. How long had it been? Centuries? Perhaps millennia of torture? It was so hard to keep track. Those fires, those hooks, digging into his flesh anew each day, searing the skin off his arms, then burning the fat, then driving to the bone. He could smell it. Almighty, he could smell it. Like, fuck that. I'm with you, Kalak. I'm if I was one of the 10, those desolations are happening one after another. Because as soon as they come in the room with the hot poker, I'm like, I'm out. Boom, start this shit over.
What a way to set the scene, man. That's brutal. Brutal on page 2.
Obviously they're immortal, so something was done to them that made them, superior to humans in the respect that they can withstand torture for millennia. Like, fuck that. Man, you torture a normal person, you're breaking them. You do that kind of stuff, you're breaking them immediately.
Yeah.
So, obviously they're more than just human. They're immortal, so it's a little bit different, but still, sounds like they can feel pain pretty good. That seems pretty rough. Don't blame them for breaking.
It's the timing is quite interesting because it sounds like this, he breaks, he admits it, and he, admits it to Jezreel, and then I guess it was timed perfectly because he's like, a decision's been made. Yeah, you're done. We've decided. We've all decided at this point. We're gonna hang this up.
It's funny, it seems like they all decided, they hung Taln out to dry, but they didn't tell Kalak about it. They were like, don't fucking tell that dude. He's a little bitch. He'll spill the beans. He'll go tell Taln what's up.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, when did this meeting take place? That'd have been a funny way for the discussion to go. Be like, what? You didn't tell me? Yeah, right. Tell somebody something, and then they're like, well, when were you going to tell me?
Well, then fine. I'll go back then. How about that? Moment.
I always think that's funny. It's rare because I don't have those types of people as usually in my group, but the rare times that I've had somebody like, when were you going to tell me? This moment right now was the moment when I was going to tell you. This moment.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
What are you gonna tell me? I'm telling you. My plan was 30 seconds ago. Was I'm gonna tell him in 30 seconds, and then I did it.
Should we do it again?
Yeah.
Do you want to do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But it sounds pretty brutal. Fire hooks.
Yeah,
burning
nasty.
fat.
And then
your bones.
So Jezreel tells him, all right, we weren't certain if you'd survived. A decision has been made. It's time for the Oath Pact to end. Now, see, I wonder if Kalak died, that would have fucking blew up their plans, because Kalak, obviously, man, he ain't fucking hanging in. And so
yeah,
the Desolation's going to happen pretty fucking quick if Kalak goes back with Taln.
It seems like it. It's hard to envision what that looks like. So I guess they've gone back to this hellish situation many, many, many times, and they don't break when they're being tortured. That's the idea, right? They sustain it or go through it.
It's one of the things about their plan that I've always been like, oh, that's kind of fucking stupid. Like, I mean, everybody else knew, like, all right, we need to stay to survive. Let Talon go back. He's the only one that's not breaking. We'll stay, but we're not going to tell Kalak, who, if he goes back, is going to fuck up the plan. So, like,
I was going to say, or he's going to be super pissed. Talk about, when were you going to tell me?
Yeah.
He's going to be really mad.
Yeah.
He's going to be super mad, man. He's not just going to, like, draw on their faces next time they get drunk.
No.
He's going to be more mad than that.
Yeah.
He's going to be more angry than just that. But yeah, you bring up obviously a really important point, and Kalak's or how he reacts felt a sharp stab of horror. What will that do? Like, so I mean, a sharp stab of horror. He's not just like surprised.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and he doesn't feel relief.
What
that's why he's so torn, is because obviously they think this Oath Pact is extremely important. And it's not something you can break, but then on the other side, they're like, I can't keep getting tortured, and then I can't break the oath. So I mean, it's a dilemma, and he's struggling with it clearly. But ultimately, what wins out is, well, let's see what happens without me getting tortured. Let's try that one out for a little bit.
Yeah, again, overall, this is why it's meant to loom so large, but overall, it's an interesting dilemma. It's also an interesting sort of just proposition, just to put in our minds of, like, so what was this decision? When was this made? Who made it? What brought them here? Because obviously you don't go through this for millennia of torture thinking we're just doing this for the hell of it. Obviously they were all in, right?
Yeah.
So being brought to the point of actually breaking, I guess maybe that was an inevitability, right? It was, there's an end to how much somebody can put up with, right? Or perhaps that's kind of the point, is they get pushed to that end that prepares them for the next step of what they're going to have to go through, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, and I like there's a chance we might end the cycle of Desolations, and that to me just sounds like the typical, like, here's the conclusion that I want, and then I'm going to work backwards from there. Yeah. And we'll make everything fit, but we're going to start at the end, and then we'll work backwards, and we'll just kind of adjust our positions accordingly.
It seems worthwhile. I'd be on board.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd be on board if I was
people do that for a lot less noble reasons than avoiding being tortured
all the time.
And he's like there in Jezreen's eyes.
Live their existence this way. I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're like, fucking. I want to eat M&Ms all day, every day. So let me see how I can justify that. And I work really hard at work, and so I'm just treating myself by shoving M&Ms down my fucking face.
You know what comes to mind? I saw an ad the other day of Willie Mays smoking Chesterfields, and it was like, Willie says they're the best, or like they're the most healthy, of all cigarettes. Yeah. like there's a healthy version.
All right, yeah, I'm smoking cigarettes, but yeah, it's like a friend, one of our friends smokes like American spirits, and I was like, why? And he was telling me like, oh, they're all natural, and I was like, what are you're gonna have like vegan fucking cancer? Like, what are we talking about here?
That's a
like
cleaner version. Oh,
they're so healthy.
what's kind of funny about that is like if you compare a Lucky Strike with no filter to like a Parliament, right? Parliament actually had that space between the filter and where you actually put it on your lips, that little paper. That actually has some logic behind it, right? Or even like a cigarette holder, but you're still inhaling the fucking smoke. It's just, the device that's delivering it is a little bit different.
But, it's you're once you're going down the route, you just gotta kind of accept what you're doing to yourself. Yeah. But so he's like there in Jezreel's eyes, Kalak saw anguish and grief, perhaps even cowardice. This was a man hanging from a cliff by a thread. Almighty above, Kalak thought, you've broken too, aren't you? You're broken too, aren't you? They all were.
Yeah. The fact that he even, he sees it. So they've all gotten to that point. Yeah, it's interesting that, this is the beginning. We're at a breaking point of immortals who have been tortured for such a long period. Seems like a pretty intense business meeting.
Yeah. And then you see one group walk past, 4 men in their ragged tan skins or shoddy leather joining a powerful figure in beautiful silver plate, amazingly intricate. Such a contrast. So that's one. They're describing a radiant there. And so he's like, they see us as divinities, Kalak whispered. They rely upon us, Jezreel. We're all that they have. They have the radiance. That will be enough. Kalak shook his head. He will not remain bound by this, the enemy. He will find a way around it. You know he will. Perhaps, the King of Heralds offered no further explanation. In town, Kalak asked, the flesh burning, the fires, the pain over and over. Better that one man should suffer than 10, Jezreel whispered. He seemed so cold, like a shadow caused by heat and light falling on someone honorable and true, casting this black imitation behind. So they're leaving town, and you have that these guys are regarded as divinities. They're regarded as gods by the people that are going to be left behind. And then you have the Radiants, who seem to be like they're, and I obviously I know what the Radiants are, but like as far as where you're at, I mean, it's, they seem like the ultimate warriors for these groups. Like you had the guys walking by in the shoddy clothes, and then like some dude walking through in this badass, plate and amazingly intricate silver plate. So it's, it's like they're top warriors basically.
Yeah. So they have someone to turn to. They still have some hope. It's not like they're losing everything. But again, goes back to what you were saying. They're still selling it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they're full on trying to just justify what they're doing. And we see that there's an enemy, the enemy, that this oath pack restrains, and they're saying by the way they're doing it that he's going to be able to work around it. He's going to be able to find a way around, since not all 10 of them are going back. So he's saying that this will break the oath pack. This won't restrain him anymore. But
yeah, again, I mean, it's a very interesting dilemma that they seem placed with, yet deciding to make this decision knowing it's not solving the problem.
Yeah.
It's foregoing the problem, and it's an attempt at something different. I like that mention, the last thing you mentioned of he seems so cold, like a shadow caused by heat and light falling on someone honorable and true. Basically he's turning his back and doing something that even for himself is difficult. It's difficult. That's been explained, but the fact that he's having to go down a road that his whole existence up to this point seems to have been in opposition to.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's very, very intense.
This is a what do you call it? A pretty intense omelet they're making. Right? Taln's an egg, seems.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can understand where they're coming from, because if it's me, I'm breaking, as soon as they show me that they're going to torture me, I'm like, what do you want? What do you need? I'll give you it. You don't have to torture me. Like, I will 100%. I will rat on anybody you want. I will tell you anything you want. Don't fucking torture me. Sorry. I can guarantee you that if someone threatens to torture me, and like they can literally torture me, yeah, I'm ratting you out 100%. Not even going to hesitate. I'll tell them whatever they want to know. Not getting tortured. Nope.
And
if the situation's reversed, though, if you rat me out, I will never speak to you again.
You know what you might find out, what could be really interesting? You might find out you like it.
Yeah, well, I'm never going to find out.
Like, it starts and you're like, ooh.
I don't even like when my leg cramps. Like my leg cramps up. I'm like, that's the worst. This is the worst. I want this to end. I will give anything. I will rat anybody out if you just make this end.
A cramp.
Yeah.
That's enough? A little heartburn?
That's enough.
You're just like, that's enough.
Yeah.
What do you need? What do you need? God, please now. Stop.
If I get too dehydrated and don't have enough potassium in my system, yeah, I'm ready to rat everybody out if someone can take that pain away.
Need some Pedialyte in the house, man.
Yeah.
Give you an IV drip.
Yeah, but don't rat me out. I don't know. That's not cool. But he goes, it's been decided, Kalak. We will go our ways, and we will not seek out one another. Our blades must be left. The oath pact ends now. He lifted his sword and rammed it into the stone with the other 7. We chose this burden willingly. Well, we can choose to drop it if we wish. What do we tell the people, Jezreel? Kalak asked. What will they say of this day? It's simple, Jezreel said, walking away. We will tell them that they finally won. It's an easy enough lie. Who knows? Maybe it will turn out to be true. Kalak watched Jezreel depart across the burned landscape. Finally, he summoned his own blade and slammed it in the stone beside the other 8. He turned and walked in the direction opposite from Jezreel, and yet he could not help glancing back at the ring of swords in the single one spot, the place where the 10th sword should have gone, the one of them who was lost, the one they had abandoned. Forgive us, Kalak thought, then left. So it's an intense opening to the book. Really kind of lays a very high stakes situation from Jump Street. Like it's not a low stakes story. It's not going to be a story of, what's going on in one village and, the drama between, people who are not getting along. This is worldly stakes.
And it sets a pretty fucking serious tone, obviously.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of joking around going on this opening here.
Now, I mean, like the leaving Taln to get tortured. I mean, that's pretty funny. That's a good prank. But outside of that, there's not a lot of humor involved.
It'd be a hard one to like Kalak or Jezreel is actually really funny and has a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
But
it's like, oh,
you throw
Taln's going to be so mad. He's going to be, I cannot wait to see his face when he sees we didn't go back. It's going to be hilarious.
I've been wanting to get him back for pantsing me that one time. It's
yeah.
Going to be so good. Oh, man.
He drew on my face last week, so fuck him.
It'd be a big risk for Sanderson. Set the tone with that. He's still real serious, but this guy's really funny. Yeah. You'll get it eventually. Like, I don't know, man. I was confused at the beginning. It just happens that guy's really funny.
it just seemed like overkill. Like a guy drew on his face, so he leaves him to be tortured for millennia. I don't know. So it doesn't seem like a balanced,
not
retort.
very even Steven. Yeah. No. But he's intense. He's that guy that just kicks it up 100 notches.
Yeah. So get off to a really, really pleasant, funny start. Feel like you're reading like Seinfeld. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mentioned a couple questions, but I shouldn't expect.
What were the questions?
Well, I guess Ishar's one of the 10.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the Knights Radiant. It seemed like, you kind of mentioned.
Yeah, that I'm not gonna tell you like exactly what's going on with the Knights Radiant because that's part of that stuff comes up and that's too important to spoil for you.
Well, it even comes up 7 pages. The Knights Radiant were gifted shard blades to fight the Voidbringers.
Yeah.
So again, it's just building them out. It's part of it is accepting the fact that it's a large story and they're going to mention some things that are going to foreshadow. Obviously, there's a few things that you can clearly tell it's foreshadowing, except that, I kind of know everything from the beginning. But my wife does that. She does that all the time. Wants to know what exactly that is coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
And my favorite answer, as always, is I'm right here with you, man. I want to know too.
Yeah.
I bet you they tell us.
Oh, that's even worse. Like when
find out.
you're watching a movie together for the first time, and then they turn to you and they're like, "So, like, what's gonna happen?" Like, I have no fucking clue.
I know.
I don't.
Great.
It's a mystery.
What's going to happen? You know what's so funny though is like what I kind of appreciate about it, as you know, you could consider they could put that on the screen. They could literally, because this is the moment you just asked. Right at the moment we're supposed to wonder, well, what's going to happen? Perfect. That's exactly what they wanted. Good job. You know, like they did a good job because they got you to ask the question right then and there when you're supposed to. I guess we'll continue to watch.
I think part of the reason I like analyzing these books like that is like I used to do that with movies. Like I had a girlfriend that would get very annoyed because I would guess what was going to happen in the movie and she would have no clue, but then I would guess it and I would end up being right and she'd be super annoyed that I fucking took that away. Cuz like even like when we saw The Village by Shyamalan.
Yeah.
And within like the first 15 minutes, I said, I guess what was going on. And for someone who hadn't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. It's not important to the story, but I guess
Sharks.
Within the first 15 minutes, yes, I guess that everybody was sharks. And it turned out, yeah, they were sharks wearing human skin. And it was obvious, in retrospect. But yeah, no, I like shit like that. I would guess it, and she'd always be like, "I hate you. I hate watching movies with you." Like soon as it's like proven true, like she's like, I hate it. I hate watching movies with you. Or like I'm big on pointing out plot holes.
Yeah, well, I mean, so when I'm pointing that out anyway, I'm not trying to be a dick. It's more like, well, that's literally what I'm thinking. I'm just not saying it out loud. I'm invested now. Good job to the writers or the people that made the show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's certain things that have happened that because of the risks that like R.R. Martin took with Ned, I'm like, all right, now I'm in. Now I'm all in this show. I'm fully in with the story. Now I'm going to read all the books just because it's like, oh, okay, I didn't see that coming. Holy shit. Right on, So, but yeah, and that's like, I guess that maybe that's a classic example of where you're just like, what, huh? What
that's one of one of the biggest ones. Like I mean, talk about shit pants moments. Like I mean, the first time I read that, I was like, what the fuck? Like, because the whole time you're reading it and it's coming up, and you're like, there's no way. Like you're thinking like, well, this isn't gonna happen. It's gonna. Well, so and then and shit goes down, and it's like, what the fuck?
So that's a really interesting way to put that, because what I brought up is, well, what's about to happen, and you can feel it coming, and you're like, no, that's not going to happen though, and then it does happen. I literally threw the book across the room at one point. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, he does a.
That's how emotionally invested I was.
Yeah,
man.
I'm not even usually like a big person into like huge twists and everything. I don't like big twists because they a lot of times they're not earned. They're not earned. It's just like
oh, you ran
a
out
twist
of ideas,
thrown in
so
to have
boom.
a twist where it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense sometimes. But yeah, his are earned, and they're fucking brutal.
Yeah, that's the other, and a twist. The twist is it twists in your freaking back, like you just got stabbed, and he twists the blade.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro. Like, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's fantastic. That's why we read these things, right? We get pulled and pushed all over the place. It's great.
So we got now book 1, The Way of Kings, 4,500 years later, and the prologue is titled To Kill. So in this chapter, we meet Szeth, and we're also going to meet some of the Alethi and the Parshendi. And the Parshendi and the Alethi have a treaty, a big party going on, but the Parshendi hire Szeth to kill King Gavilar. And he lays waste to this fucking place and learn a little bit about the magic, and he accomplishes his goal in a brutal fashion.
Dude, So, I definitely got sold on the book. within this chapter. It's so great. I mean, in terms of how the magic works, it's fucking great. But then also just Szeth himself, the character, the reluctant assassin of sorts, right? The fact that like the turmoil within the character is so interesting, because he talks, well, you get it peppered throughout, but the fact that like he's doing these things, but he's having to do the things in a certain way, yet he can't, like take his own life, and it's so great. And I've read at least 2 chapters with him, if not more, where you learn a little bit more about, the fact that, or what he is,
Yeah.
and kind of what his role is. And it's just a tremendously interesting character. And then on top of everything else to have him so able, it's fucking great, man.
Yeah, it's a super dope chapter, especially like going back through it here, now the third time. There's a bunch of stuff built in to the chapter that it's easy to not notice, but once you understand the story and you understand the full scope, there's more into it than you would notice on the surface, because you just don't know the characters and you don't know exactly what's going on. But it's so dope. And
I was going to say, obviously, he's the hero of the show because he's a king killer.
Yeah.
So boom.
Yeah.
Szeth is the hero.
Yeah. I mean, we and if you haven't listened, we obviously we cover the King Killer Chronicles and through 2 books, we're still waiting on some of that shit. But yeah. Szeth, man, right here in the prologue, it's fucking getting with it. Real king killer.
Well, so a couple interesting, like he has this title, Truthless of Shinobar. That's interesting to call someone truthless.
Yeah. Well, and just before that, we have the very beginning of the chapter. Starts off with, the love of men is a frigid thing, a mountain stream only 3 steps from the ice. We are his, O Stormfather, we are his. It is but 1,000 days, and the Everstorm comes. Collected on the first day of the week, Pala of the month, Shash of the year 1171, 31 seconds before death. Subject was a dark-eyed pregnant woman of middle years. The child did not survive. So we're going to eventually learn what the fuck's going on with there. Obviously, they're doing some sort of test where they're collecting the words from people as they're dying. But, when you're going back through it on a reread, anybody who's read it, they're going to know, but 1,000 days and the Everstorm comes, they're going to know what the fuck's up with that. They're going to know what Stormfather is. But these are things you will learn as you're going along, as well as what is going on with these opening of these chapters when you have the, collected on this day, 30 seconds before death. You're going to figure out what the fuck's going on there later on. But it's kind of a mystery in the beginning. You don't have any clue what the fuck's up.
Yeah, it's a little weird because in the beginning you're like, okay, that's whatever. And then as you go through it, multiple chapters, you're like, all right, so this doesn't necessarily connect to the person that is the subject in the chapter, because you don't know that, obviously. You think it would be just because of its location and where it is. But yeah, it's one of those things that I've kind of learned to accept, where it's like, well, first of all, you're not going to know everything, which I kind of talked about that a couple times. But those are payoffs that you'll eventually get down the road. So it's something to look forward to.
It's a pretty cool payoff too. I mean, so it's good when it comes up what the fuck's going on.
It would be interesting if instead you said, yeah, it's not a cool payoff at all.
Yeah, it sucked. It was stupid.
It didn't make any. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't connect at all.
I just wanted you to stick with the book. But yeah, it is pretty lame. But yeah, so you get Szeth's son Villano, Truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king. The white clothing was a Parshendi tradition, foreign to him, but he did as his masters required and did not ask for explanation. So you'll figure out why he's called Truthless. That'll come up. We'll get answers to that. I'm not going to go into it now, but that will come up again. So when it does, we'll talk about it. But we're getting the introduction of the Parshendi. So that's obviously one group of this part of the treaty. The other group is the Alethi, and it's a very new treaty. In fact, that they just signed it, and they're having a big party for just signing it. And the Parshendi are already like, yeah, go fuck yourself. and we're gonna kill your king.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, I guess this was like lulling them into a state of vulnerability. Maybe it was the move. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean and we will get answers on why they do what they do, but that will be one we'll talk about when you come across it. But so we got few at the treaty signing celebration noticed him. He was just a servant, and Shin were easy to ignore. Most out here in the East thought Szeth's kind were docile and harmless. They were generally right. Not with fucking Szeth, though. And Szeth's masters, who were dismissed as savages by those in more civilized kingdoms, sat at their own tables. They were men with skin of black marbled and with red. Parshendi they were named, cousin to the more docile servant peoples known as Parshmen in most of the world. An oddity. They did not call themselves Parshendi. This was the Alethi name for them. It meant roughly Parshmen who cannot or Parshmen who can think. Neither side seemed to take that as an insult. So you get that there's Parshmen and Parshendi are cousins to each other. One is like a slave race who cannot think, as basically mindless servants.
Seems implied, yeah.
Yeah, and Parshendi, share a lineage with them, but they're different, and they're looked at as savages, and they're not quite human in the sense that they got skin of black marbled with red. So it's a entirely different race of people, not just human. So then you have to them drums were bass instruments, so that they're all playing the drums, and you have that these drums were bass instruments of the common dark-eyed people. But wine was the great assassin of both tradition and propriety, and now the Alethi elite dance with abandon. So you also get in this beginning, you get the setup of that there's a difference between dark-eyed and light-eyed people, and there's a separate a part of their political elite is based on eye color. There's a significant difference. System. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting, and how that dynamic comes about. But so, and you're getting, again, he's doing a lot of world building, but he's just kind of subtly putting it in. He's just kind of throwing out little statements that you can easily overlook, so it doesn't weigh you down. It's done well where you're not, you just read that and you're just gonna roll right through it. You're not gonna stop and fucking overthink about it. And he's not spelling it out where it's just a long diatribe of the explanations of the caste system. He just gives you little drips, little drabs, but starts building the world out so that brick by brick you're gonna get more and more. And when you're doing a 1,000-page book, you can't just do long diatribes where you're explaining the world. It's boring. Yeah, it's just boring. So he does a good job of just kind of throwing these things out there. And then I like this part too, because he's like, as he walked, Szeth was forced to step around Dalinar Kholin, the king's own brother, who slumped drunken at a small table. The aging but powerfully built man kept waving those who tried to encourage him to bed. Obviously, we meet Dalinar pretty quickly in part 2, and he is nothing like he's described here. So there's a dramatic change between what happened here and then 6 years later. I mean, like when you meet Dalinar and you actually meet him, the idea of him being like fucking sloppy drunk at a treaty signing, it just seems completely outlandish. Like, this is not the same dude. This is a completely different dude. Like, to the point where, like, the first time you read this, you won't even, when you meet Dalinar, you're not thinking about this part. You're not even thinking about that. The fact that the first time you see him, he's fucking sloppy drunk.
Yeah, it does seem very, I mean, because of what I've read of him later, if I remember right, isn't he pretty, not chaste, but he's like, he comes across as quite serious.
Yeah, very right? serious, very much about, like, you got the proper way and, got to wear your military uniform all the time. And like Adolin talks about the fact that this guy's all about like propriety and all these kind of things, and being upstanding and good and noble, and these, and following the right path type of dude. So it's 180 degrees difference to being sloppy drunk at a party.
Yeah, it almost seems like he's like someone took advantage of him, or like, slipped him a Mickey or something.
And obviously this is such a monumental event, and we find out as we go through the books more and more information about what the fuck is going on at this party. We find out more and more as we go along. But we're just kind of getting introduced to some of the characters to get their names and, who they are in relation to other people. And you get kind of to the big, sections. The Parshendi and the Alethi were obviously prominent in book 1. So we just kind of get in the introduction of these people, because we also get Jasna, the king's daughter. He says, where was she? Elhokar, the king's son and heir, sat at the table, ruling the feast in his father's absence. He was in conversation with 2 men, a dark-skinned Asius man, who had an odd patch of pale skin on his cheek, and a thinner, Alethi-looking man who kept glancing over his shoulder. I know who these guys are. You don't find out about it until later on, and it's not even going to be spelled out. It's one of these ones that you have to put it together after the fact, but you can't put it together the first time through. It's impossible. But we will find out, and when we get to the points where we have enough information to say who it is, I'll come back to it. But yeah, we will find out who these guys are. And I like the fact that he's like, the heir's feasting companions were unimportant, which he's 100% wrong. And we get introduced to there's music spren.
Is that from when he says that? Is that from Szeth's perspective?
Yes.
They were unimportant? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because Szeth, they are unimportant. Yeah.
He has his mission.
Yeah. And so we also get music spren. So we get the first mention of spren, which we find out about, spren once we meet Kaladin. Yeah. And even in the very first chapter, in this, there's mention of spren, but you don't really know anything about them at this point.
Yeah, but so reading through it again, it's interesting because you see like the fear spren and flame spren, and then you start. That's when you're sort of piecing it. When I first listened to it, I'm like, that's interesting. It seems like there's like a sort of like an loose embodiment around things, like around, because it's fear, it's like emotion based, but then also this is music, which there's obviously emotion in music, but it's fucking great. It's a really super creative thing that Sanderson a motif that he creates. It's great because it's visual and it like builds out the world, and then when the spren gets involved with Kaladin, it takes on even a bigger role, which is super interesting.
Yeah, it's unique, like to have
very much
these spren that are attracted by different emotions or different like music or fear or all these different feelings and different objects attract different spren. So it's very unique. It's completely different.
What's so great about it too, it's not like they're insects, right? They're like translucent.
Yeah.
Like I think what part of where it gets described with Kaladin is like, it's almost like when you look at the sun and then look back, like you look at a light and then you look back. So you kind of see, you've sensed something, so you can kind of visualize it, but it's not something you can touch necessarily.
Yeah. And like the music spren, obviously, when you picture it, you're just picturing like a miniature Michael Bolton jamming out.
That's what you're picturing? A miniature Michael Bolton?
Yeah.
Then you have like he had like the super mullet, right?
Did yeah, I think he did. He had a pretty sweet mullet.
That's just in the back. That's just his tail is just this big mullet.
Yeah, like it's translucent mullet waving in the air as he's sitting there playing his flutophone or whatever he plays.
I think he sings, man. Kenny G plays a clarinet. I don't think Michael Bolton plays an
They're
instrument.
the same person.
I could be totally wrong. I don't know. They're fucking lame.
Kenny G and Michael Bolton are the same exact person.
I don't think that's true,
Yeah,
Dan.
no, that's 100%
Actually, I'm very
true.
confident. I'm very confident that is not true.
Kenny G is his nickname. That's 100% true. That's a
Wow.
fact.
He dyes his hair.
Don't
and curls
fact check me. Just trust me on that one. That is 100% true, though.
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, and so then we got him going through. They did not seem offended. They did not seem angry, and yet they were going to break their treaty of only a few hours. It made no sense. But Szeth did not ask questions. So this after him seeing the Parshendi, they kind of look at him as he's walking by, give him the head nod, and they. But he's like, dude, what is going on? They're hiring me to kill these guys, but they seem like perfectly chill at this party, playing their drums, having a good old time. And they're about to fuck shit up here with me as their tool.
Yeah, interesting. Obviously, I don't know what's behind it, but they seem a bit underhanded here.
Yeah, they're a real interesting group. I mean, this is real interesting the more you learn about them. But yeah, then so he goes looking for the king, and he's like he finds like their lanterns on the walls. They held sapphires infused with stormlight. And he's like, profane. How could the men of these lands use something so sacred for mere illumination? Worse, the Alethi scholars were said to be close to creating new shard blades. Szeth hoped that was just wishful boasting, for if it did happen, the world would be changed, likely in a way that ended with the people in all countries from distant Dalinar to towering Jakaved speaking Alethi to their children. And so he's got a weird, a different religion than the people of the land that he's at. Like, stepping on stone is profane.
Yeah, it seems like a culture
Stormlight
clash.
used as is profane. So he's his upbringing. He's from a very different culture, obviously, than the people that he's currently with. And the sapphires infused with stormlight. It's also their currency. It's weird because it's like their lamps. It's their currency. And
it seems like it holds energy, in which
case
it has value, so they trade with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in which it seems like, well, obviously like emeralds, I think, hold the most or something like that. So there's understandably, there's like a, what do you call it? Jesus, a fucking hierarchy of value. And it's which ones hold the most or which one are the most valuable. And then it scales down.
Yeah. Yeah. There's different, like, the different valuations, kind of based on the, how well it holds stormlight, how long it holds stormlight, how much stormlight it can hold, those kind of things factor into how much these things are worth.
It's interesting too, if I remember right, like the Chol has it as its heart, right? Isn't it like in the center of like
they have like gemstones in their heart. Yeah.
So I mean, so you kind of like harvest these things. I mean, it's not easy to kill the thing that they end up killing in a couple chapters from now, but at the end of it, there's that reward of now you have this raw gemstone that is extraordinarily expensive, worthwhile, and
that you can make into spheres that have value, and they can also be used for other things, like you see Jasna, when she uses her device. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the soulcaster. When she uses her soulcaster, that also has gemstones, and the different gemstones do different allow the soulcasters to do different things. So they mention that when she comes up in one of the first, like, chapter 3, I think, or 4. But so this currency, its valuation is, a lot of it is dependent on its utility, as far as what you can use it for, how well it can store stormlight, those kind of things. So it's a very different type of currency. It seems I would hate this currency. It seems like a huge pain in the ass that you got to carry around a bunch of spheres with you. like these like glass fucking spheres with a gemstone in the middle. It seems unwieldy and a big pain in the ass.
It seems very difficult to be able to make change. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of ability to round down or round up.
Yeah,
right?
it's not like like a piece of gold. You can cut it in as many pieces as you want, and 1/6 is you cut it into 6 pieces. Each piece is worth the same. You put them all back together, worth the same. So it's like, it's not a portable currency. So it's a very very different world that would it would make the economics of the world very, very complex.
Well, there's an attempt at it because there is the sapphire emerald, and there's that hierarchy of the values. But still, unless you can shatter it and then be like, oh, well, this piece is worth that much. How do you? Yeah,
it would be like having gold, silver, and copper, but not being able to break them down, or not being not break them down easily, or like you can with gold or silver or copper.
I do like what I do appreciate about is the utility in terms of it actually does have value. However, it does actually have utility, right?
Yeah.
So that still works in terms of like as money, right? There's a value. There's an actual applicable value, which is a cool way to build the world out. And
it's surprising that it would be the currency, though, considering they do have metals. You would think the metals still would have been more convenient. But there seems to be like a religious reverence behind these things as well, that there's more to them than that would draw people to them that would make them become the currency versus metals, which would seem to be the better money or the better form. Yeah, the better means of exchange. Like it seems like the metals would be a much better means of exchange, but for whatever reason, the world gravitated towards these spheres, which are extremely interesting and unique. And I haven't read other stories that have, things like this that are at least not in the same way. It's very unique.
It's nice to visualize. It works on a visual level for the reader in quite an interesting way, at least for me. I like the idea of him pulling the energy and pulling the light and then the light seeping out of things. It's pretty great to visualize. It's not something we have in our world. Obviously we have light and we have the ability to harness light to certain degrees, but the way that this works, it's fun to sort of, and then this goes into also the elements of like, you make this into a television show or a movie. Like that would be a really interesting, it could be very campy, not done a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Like you do it a certain way and it could be tremendous, or it could be like super campy or cartoonish. There's a fine line that one would have to walk there in the visual, sort of representation of it.
Yeah, a lot of people prefer that this be made into an animated series. I think there's no chance that would happen. He would just be giving up so much money, because this is a very popular series and the technology is there where you can make a series like this. It's not like this is 30 years ago where it would have looked ridiculous. Now, you see all the superhero movies and you see what they can do with the CGI, and it's only getting better. Like in another 10 years, where the fuck's it gonna be? Like, no, this series is gonna. He's gonna get fucking paid off this series. He's gonna make this into a TV show or movies.
Especially this chapter. So the spren done a certain way could be campy as shit. What I love about the spren in particular is that it is sort of almost lighthearted, childish element mixed into like, look at the prologue.
Very gritty,
look at what
dark
Szeth
world.
does here. It's dark as shit, and to mix that in with the darkness is great. That would play on to a great level for an audience where you're building a much, much larger audience than if you just did this as a cartoon, and especially this, or animated, and especially this chapter. Like, to me, when I read this, I'm like, dude, this is the Matrix and this is the next version. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? This would build on what they did with the Matrix, and you watch that first scene with Trinity going all around the walls and shit. You portray Szeth in the right way, where he's getting pulled all the way to the other end of the room, and then using gravity up then down. Fuck, man, that could be visually. I mean, people would be jacked watching this if they hadn't read the books. You know what I'm saying? Like if you hadn't read the books and you go in and you see Szeth doing all this, dude, you'd be blown away, man.
Yeah, especially, I mean, you go from you see this world annihilated with the giant rock monster and these two guys, with these magical swords, and they're going through. They're saying you get this real dark opening, and then you come through, and a king's getting assassinated with this dude jumping from one wall to another, like changing what's up and down for himself, throwing guys up against the ceiling. Like it would be fucking an insane opening. 15, 20 minutes of a series. Be like,
I think it'd be.
Is this?
I think. I wonder if this chapter would be a better opening. Like literally just opening with this chapter. I don't know. I'm just considering
you could,
the jump off point.
I think the first prologue, it's basically two prologues. I mean, the prelude.
You're setting the.
I think that world setting is important, and it sets such a dark, gritty beginning that I think it would be worth it to start there. But I mean, you could do either or though. Really, yeah. I don't think. I mean, you could fill that stuff in later on, but. Yeah, these are dope. And then another, I like one of the other oddities of this world where the left sleeve of each dress was longer than the right one, covering the hand. Alethi had an odd sense of propriety. That one's super weird. Like they don't show their hand.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Again, the world building and the culture. It's weird. Yeah, it's definitely very weird. But it's something that, gets built into your culture. And then for whatever reason, there was a time where that was a thing and now it's still a thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to make any sense, but, what have you.
And you're getting right in the very beginning, you're getting three separate cultures. You get Szeth. Yeah. He's got a very different culture where, they seeing the lights on the wall are profane, touching stone, walking on stone is profane. He
seems to be.
The Parshendi are seen as like, savages. And then the Alethi he's like weirdos covering their left hands. Like, dude, you won't even walk on, you think walking on stone is weird. Like, you're all weird. Like you guys, there's three distinct cultures in the very beginning. And none of their cultures are like ours.
And they likely all look down on each other.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's just how things are culturally. They're not us. They're weird.
Yeah.
Or, whatever. I mean, I like the idea that Szeth we get to read what he does and see everything he does. But when he walks in, he's basically ignored and nobody pays attention to him. That's his people, and his people they just basically move in and out and nobody pays attention.
And then so Szeth he leaves the feasting chamber and he goes into the Beggars Feast, and which is a similar feast, but for the poorest men and women in the city. And a man with a long gray and black beard slumped in the doorway, smiling foolishly, the whether from wine or a weak mind Szeth could not tell. "Have you seen me?" the man asked with slurred speech. He laughed, then began to speak in gibberish, reaching for a wineskin. So it was drink after all. Szeth brushed by, continuing past the line of statues depicting the 10 heralds from ancient foreign theology. And after he'd abandoned the then he's like, Jezereza, Ishi, Kalek, Talon. He counted off each one and realized there were only 9 here. One was conspicuously missing. Why had Shalash's statue been removed? King Gavlar was said to be very devout in his Vorin worship. Too devout by some people's standards. So, you get their names are different. So their names through the years have been adjusted to the different languages, and will also, as far as that bum with the gray and black beard, that guy is a figure that we'll learn more about. And then we'll learn also like why Shalash's statue had been removed. We'll learn more about that as well. So these are little things where little tiny pieces that easily you just kind of roll through the first time you go through. Second time you learn about, you figure out what's going on, especially like when you see it and you even just go online. You're like, hold on. Now you know that there's something to that. And then you go look it up and you find out. So like these are things we'll come across but the nice thing is because this stuff is brought back in, we can figure out what's going on in these once you get a little further into the books, and we can come back to some of these kind of things, but we will figure out more of that. But yeah, then he goes in and he's like, he brings up why he's wearing white clothing. He says white clothing for a killer was a tradition among the Parshendi. Although Szeth had not asked, his masters had explained why. I love that. I didn't even fucking ask, but, they fucking told me. White to be bold, white to not blend into the night, white to give warning, for if you were going to assassinate a man, he was entitled to see you coming.
Pretty interesting. And then also given the fact that they just signed this pact.
Yeah. Right? Well, and they just hire him to do it, and then they're like, oh, and we want you to really stand out while you're doing it. We want it super flamboyant, want everybody to notice you. And he's like, dude, but you're hiring me to go assassinate a king, and you're like, do it in the most flamboyant way you possibly can, really make a big show about it, really, really get everybody running at you, everybody away coming at you, don't do anything stealthy, really stand out. Like,
he does. That's for sure. He makes a shit ton of noise. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love it. He goes up to the gemstones, sucks out the stormlight, and these guys, he mentions like they probably have never seen anything like this before. And then it's like Szeth looked as the two guards approached. They carried spears. They weren't light eyes and were therefore forbidden from the sword. Another little cultural thing where the dark eyes don't get to carry swords. And after this, you would think that tradition would go out the fucking window, because you'd be like, no, you carry whatever weapon you possibly can to defend against people like this. But yeah,
it's dude. I was gonna say it's awesome. I mean, the whole way it takes off quick. So we get this explanation of like what he's wearing, blah blah blah. After this like bit of world building, but yeah, it's these guards they seem to be pretty shocked by what they're seeing. Like, whoa, what? I mean, I'm probably getting way ahead, but it was basically like, what are you?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, that we're right there, because he's like the stormlight raged inside of him, and the hallway suddenly grew darker, falling into the shade like a hilltop cut off from the sun by a transient cloud. Szeth could feel the light's warmth, its fury, like a tempest that had been injected directly into his veins. The power of it was invigorating but dangerous. It pushed him to act, to move, to strike. Holding his breath, he clung to the stormlight. He could still feel it leaking out. Stormlight could be held for only a short time, a few minutes at most. It leaked away, the human body too porous a container. He had heard that the Voidbringers could hold it in perfectly, but then, did they even exist? His punishment declared that they did. His honor demanded that they did. So obviously that stands out, but you don't, until you understand more about Szeth and why, he's in the situation he's in, you don't really understand some of these things he says, like his punishment declared that they didn't, his honor demanded that they did.
It's cool. I mean, it does give you that hint that there's more to the situation. He's a complex character.
Yeah.
He's not just, some hired thug or what have you.
And one of you obviously too, you find, I mean, he does not want to do this. He's not enjoying himself. This is not fun for him. He's to the point that he's like, I hope they kill me, but I can't let them kill me, but I kind of, it'd be sweet if they did.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's a super interesting wrinkle that comes up. What I was thinking there though, is like one of the interesting things that would be difficult to show, since we were talking about it as, visually as a show, the human body leaking, like showing it leaking away. Mm-hmm. It's hard to encapsulate that. I mean, you'd have to show like examples of like, oh, now he's run out. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you don't know that unless you're reading it. But then,
they describe it as like a luminescent smoke And so
Yeah.
you can, like a, I mean, like a
Well, you don't
luminescent
have a
smoke.
meter. It's not like a video. But it's not like a video game where you have that meter and it's running. Which would also, this would fucking be great as a video game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to have that meter where you are running out. Because I've played games like that, right?
Yeah.
Where you only have so much.
Oh, this would make such
cool.
a dope video game.
Yeah. Well, and it's great being in the situation as well, because it is like, it's not endless. We get it when he's on the when he's hurt towards the end of the chapter, where he's out on the balcony, and it's like he's kind of running out of options of what he can. He's still in control, but the options are thinning, right? But yeah, it's great to have that, and that would be an advantage for the reader who's seeing it. If you're seeing it, watching it like on a show, you would know, because you've read that, but it would be hard to create that visually.
That would be awesome is like a virtual reality game where you have like a treadmill, the rotating treadmill that kind of moves with you, where you can kind of run and turn your body and the treadmill will turn and everything. But then also like a straps that kind of can lift you up off the ground a little bit, so you could like do flips and everything too. So you could like really embody doing these things in virtual reality. When they get to that point, like I think I'm checking out on the real world, and I'm just gonna live in this world.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, that's
it's gonna be Ready Player One.
It sounds like it. It sounds like you're gonna have a whole bunch of people that would rather just live in that world, because you're getting a tremendous amount of rewards, right?
Yeah. Your brain is getting
dopamine
juiced
like crazy.
Yeah, you're getting juiced. But yeah, so Szeth goes and says that when he pulls in the lightning, he says he doubted anybody had seen, they'd seen anything like this before. As far as he knew, Szeth had killed every Stonewalker, had seen him do what he could do. So he's killing anybody who sees this. So this is completely new to these guys. They have no idea what the fuck's going on. So it's not just like this guy does these crazy things. He's doing things that these guys don't even believe is possible. Like, how is he flying through the air? And because it would look like he's flying and walking on walls and shit.
Yeah,
you don't like you're not
like
in
the laws of
his
physics
head.
don't apply to him.
Yeah. Because it's insane. Like he's like flying at you and then darts straight up, at a right angle, like as he's flying straight to you, and then changes directions. It looks like he's fucking flying. And then he's running on the walls. Like, what the fuck is this? Who is this person?
Well, and that's why, it sounds like he 100% looks like a human being. But when you do all that shit, that's where it becomes, dude, are you like a spirit? You don't seem like a real person being able to be capable of all these things. Plus he's like sucking, or he's, his body's taking in the luminescence and all that. That's definitely otherworldly for sure.
Yeah. And the guy asks him, he's like, what am I? Or he's like, what are you? And he's like, what am I? I'm sorry. And then Szeth blinked, lashing himself to the distant point down the hallway. Stormlight raged from him in a flash, chilling his skin, and the ground immediately stopped pulling him downward. Instead, he was pulled toward the distant point. It was as if, to him, that direction had suddenly become down. This was a basic lashing, first of his 3 kinds of lashings. It gave him the ability to manipulate whatever force, spren, or god it was that held him into the ground. With this lashing, he could bind people or objects to different surfaces or in different directions. So he's able to make a lashing to the other side of the hallway, and he makes that down so that now he is falling towards the other end of the hallway and just kind of flying through the air. And it looks like the people who are on the ground, it looks like now they are on the wall.
Yeah, man. You remember? I don't know if you remember. Well, we drank before we went to a movie. You fell asleep in the beginning of the movie and then left. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Was this Inception?
Yes. When they showed the preview and the world tilted, that's what I thought they were going to do, which they didn't do. But that's what I thought they were going to do, what they're doing here. So again, I'm like thinking of these movies we've seen in the past, like The Matrix or Inception. And like, picturing this, it's so great it happens this early in the book, because I don't know how you can read this and not be immediately sold that this is fucking awesome. But yeah, it's interesting. I thought it was kind of interesting that he capitalizes lashing, and every time it says lashed, it's capitalized. Doesn't matter where it is in the sentence.
Yeah.
Basic lashing is capitalized. So it's almost like, I almost feel like there should be a trademark next to lashing.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
it's great. He's like, I invented this shit. That's why I'm capitalizing.
Yeah.
This is my thing.
If they do it on a show, like, because it would be easy to make it look like he's just flying instead of falling. And so, like, I think what you got to do is, like, you got to change the orientation of the camera where it's clear that now these guys that are on the floor are to him on the wall. So, like, you got to kind of flip the room.
It's a lot of POV. Yeah, you'd have to show it. So I think it's a lot of, like, you're showing the room in a different perspective, but you're also showing it from either Szeth's perspective and then switching back to the other guy's perspective.
Yeah.
But then still doing it in a way that's not too disorienting.
Yeah.
It would be interesting.
It would be a complex thing to do, but I mean, I've seen movies do those kind of things, so I mean, it can be done. It just it would have to be done. I don't know how they do it, but I mean, it can be done.
But this is a very good. This is an opportunity, right? And that's what you were bringing up earlier about, if you just do this animated, you're missing that entire opportunity. The opportunity's gone now.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity to reinvent. I mean, because that's kind of what The Matrix did. It reinvented the visual elements. I mean, every movie since action movies after The Matrix were completely different than before The Matrix, right?
Yeah.
And this has taken it. I see the potential to take this in a completely different direction. It's not going to be, I'm not going to be the one that does it, but somebody can crack the code, figure that out, and then however you do those shots, make it happen. It's fucking great, man. The potential is fascinating to consider.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it's so well done. Like, I mean, he when he puts the point on the other end of the wall, like, he goes flying at these guys and just straight kicks them both in the face. But I mean, he's just like, to them, it would be like, this dude is flying feet first at us. And just jacked it, like, you would be so, like, thrown off. Then he, like, throws one guy, he lashes one guy so that he falls up to the ceiling. And, like, now the guy's stuck on the ceiling and, like, would be completely thrown off. Like, what the hell? Like, why am I stuck to the ceiling? And,
well, it's so great because Szeth isn't crouching and jumping with his own strength. It's literally just pulling the world around, moving everything.
It's like changing the direction of gravity for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And because of that, it's almost like Tai Chi in a way. It's like you're using the weight itself to then create the situation and create, the now lethal moment. And what's so great about the whole thing too is he's not enjoying any of it. Like, he's reluctant. Right?
Yeah.
To have the agent of chaos in this situation to actually be reluctant, reluctant's not the right word, but
well, because I mean, he says it like, to kill, it was the greatest sin, and yet here Szeth stood, truthless, profanely walking on stone used for building, and it would not end. As truthless, there was only one life he was forbidden to take, and that was his own. You get like, he does not want to be doing this. To the point that he wishes someone would kill him. He's obviously very difficult to kill, and he's not going to let you do it. That also is part of his, to him as a punishment, is that he has to fight as hard as he can.
That's what's so interesting about the complexity of the character, is that he's still moral, right? He still has this moral code that he adheres to, yet he's like truthless, or like he's a slave, yet he has this moral code that he has to adhere to. It's super interesting, man.
I love this next little two parts. These are so dope. Like, when he first, like, the description of the shard blade, it's like, at the 10th beat of his heart, his shard blade dropped into his waiting hands. So you get your first introduction of, like, have to wait 10 heartbeats, and which will be explained at some point later on in the books, why there's 10 heartbeats. But it formed as if condensing from mist, water beating along the metal length. His shard blade was long and thin, edged on both sides, smaller than most others. Szeth swept it out, carving a line in the stone floor and passing through the second guard's neck. As always, the shard blade killed oddly. Though it cut easily through stone, steel, or anything inanimate, The metal fuzzed when it touched living skin. It traveled through the guard's neck without leaving a mark, but once it did, the man's eyes smoked and burned out. They blackened, shriveling up in his head, and he slumped forward dead. A shard blade did not cut living flesh. It severed the soul itself. That would be wild.
Yeah, that's super interesting to picture. Like the idea it's severing the soul rather than like flesh. Yeah, it's
and it like, you know, it like basically pulls right through without really any give.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I mean, chopping someone's, you know, you're not cutting someone's head off, but cutting through their head would be simple. You just swing it through. It's going to go right through them, like, you know, not even butter through knife. It's less than that.
It sounds like it's that with stone. It sounds like
like I mean, you could put your sword up in front of your face, and he's going to cut through the sword and your head with no fucking problem. The sword's going to get cut in half, but your head is not. Now, after you die, then he could chop you up. Once you become inanimate, he could cut you, but you know, living flesh he can't cut. So it's very it's a weird fucking sword.
Yeah,
you get it in the very beginning. It's very fucking different.
Again, man, visually it's tremendous. I mean, the mixture of all these things all being thrown at us all at once, and it's action packed. Awesome.
This is one of my favorite parts. This is probably my favorite part of this chapter, when Szeth bent down and picked up the spear that had fallen from above. As he did so, he released his breath he'd been holding since drawing in the stormlight. It sustained him while he held it, but those two lanterns hadn't contained much of it, so he would need to breathe again soon. Light began to leak away more quickly now that he wasn't holding his breath. Szeth set the spear's butt against the stone floor, then looked upward. The guard above stopped shouting, his eyes opening wide as the tails of his shirt began to slip downward, the earth below reasserting its dominance. Light streaming off his body dwindled. He looked down at Szeth, down at the spear pointing directly at his heart. Violet fear spren crawled out of the stone ceiling around him. The light ran out. The guard fell. He screamed as he hit, the spear impaling him through the chest. Szeth let the spear fall away, carried to the ground with a muffled thump by the body twitching on its end. That would suck. That's a shitty death.
It's funny every time I read it. When it says his shirt tails, the tails of his shirt began to slip. I picture this dude in a tuxedo every time. Yeah, you know, like the Bugs Bunny playing piano at every time I see the tails.
It is, and it's kind of like a Wile E. Coyote moment where he's like runs out into the fucking canyon, and once he looks down, like, oh shit.
That was always the genius. That was the genius of it. Once he realizes the gravity, then he falls. But until he realizes it, he's okay. It's I love that. That's great. But I mean, visually this is awesome. It's so great.
That's when you're like, okay, this dude is a bad motherfucker, man. Because like he's not only like fucking killing dudes, he's got his crazy sword that's obviously just a freaking killing machine. That like you're fucked if someone shows up with one of these swords. There's nothing, and you're just a regular soldier. It's like, oh, we're fucking screwed. Well, what are we going to do? You can fucking chop right through our weapons no matter what our weapon is. And our armor is not going to protect us. There's nothing we can do. If he cuts us, we're dead. Mm-hmm. But then, like, he's using that, and then he just, like, casually picks up a spear, sets it on the ground, and just, like, waits for this guy to fucking shish kebab himself on it. And it's like, Jesus, man, this dude is brutal.
Yeah.
He is a killing machine.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's just all these displays of ways that he's capable of using this magic. And then, like you said, slowly but surely letting us know how it works because he stops breathing. He stops holding his breath. And then we realize that meter starts going down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we get a little piece of how that works. Then we get Violet fear spren crawling out of the stone ceiling. So again, these little world building things are sort of I guess it's world building, right? It's like the physics of the world, and then
it's building the magic. I mean, there's a lot of world building in this, and definitely the building of the magic system. At least one of the magics, and then we also get that the things that he's doing, all these lashings, they had not been seen for millennia. Histories from those times were all but non-existent, and the legends were horribly inaccurate. So this is literally, I mean, like no one in existence in this world, you know, an average non-immortal being has never seen anything like this. So it's got to be absolutely terrifying. Obviously, they've seen shard blades and shard plate, but they've never seen lashings. And this guy is flying through the air. He's pulling spears. You know, they throw spears at him, and he holds the wall, and the spears veer course and hit the wall. They get pulled towards where his hand is holding, and then or like he changes the direction of objects and sends them flying at other people, and you know he binds the door shut so they can't fucking open it. Like he does all these crazy lashings where like I mean, what the fuck is going on? Like this is not possible for these people's minds.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about what you just said there, that no one had seen it for millennia, and the fact that Szeth is not king of the world.
Yeah.
When he's capable of doing all these things, because it sounds like he could be, if that's what he wanted. Instead, it sounds like he's cursed.
Yeah.
Right? Like he fucking. So really it's a very interesting way to build and deliver all this information, you know, and to have it contained in somebody like this, like what's his backstory? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy power to have, and you know, in the wrong hands, yeah. I mean, you would this, especially with nobody else having this capability in this world currently, like that you would think like if he wanted to, and you know he felt he could take over the fucking world. Who's gonna stop him?
I mean, I'm also picturing just like you're sitting on the couch watching TV, and you literally just turn the world, and the remote comes in your hand instead of having to get up.
Yeah,
I mean. Fucking awesome, right?
Yeah, you would just do that lashing that, you know, pulls objects towards you.
Exactly.
So just
fantastic.
Yeah, that I mean that's the most practical use for it, is you don't have to get up off the couch anymore. You can just pull everything you need to you. You just get a bedpan, pop it down, drop it off, throw it out at somebody, and clean that shit up.
Jesus.
What are they gonna do? Like if they complain, you just like pull out your shard blade and like, what's up? What are you gonna do? I can fly.
You can pull the fridge open, pull a beer out of the fridge, just have it right in your hand.
Yeah,
boom, got him.
Yeah, you could be the most dangerous slob in the history of the world.
Underutilization of these skills. Just a super, super lazy.
All the power enough to take over the world capable. And using it to be as lazy as you possibly can. But yeah, so then he goes and is like preparing for a full lashing. He raised his arm, commanding the stormlight to pool there, causing the skin to burst alight with radiance. Then he flung his hand out towards the door frame, spraying white luminescent across it like paint. He slammed the door shut just as the guards arrived. The stormlight held the door and the frame with the strength of 100 arms. A full lashing bound objects together, holding them fast until the stormlight ran out. It took longer to create and drain stormlight far more quickly than a basic lashing. The door handle shook, and then the wood began to crack as the guards threw their weight against it, one man calling for an axe. So with this binding, he can like lock things in place. So like he can bind that door so that these guys just banging into it can't fucking budge it. They can't open it. They're trying to cut it down. There's nothing they can do to jar it open. So when he binds it there, it's stuck. It's basically, you know, super glue. It's a super glue type of power. And then he goes and uses another one where he reached the far wall, and preparing himself for yet another blasphemy, he raised his shard blade and slashed horizontally through the dark gray stone. The rock sliced easily. A shard blade could cut any inanimate object. 2 vertical slashes followed, then one across the bottom, cutting a large square block. He pressed his hand against it, willing stormlight into the stone. Behind him, the room's doorway began to crack. He looked over his shoulder and focused on the shaking door, lashing the block in that direction. And so as they open the door, this big chunk of stone wall, comes flying at him because he cut it, you know, away from the wall, but then he lashed it so that the gravity changed so that the other side of the room was now down for that piece of stone. And so when they opened the door, bam, they just got smoked with a big boulder.
It's super cool to see it fall like at the speed of gravity, fall naturally, like it kind of tip and then,
Yeah, because I mean, like, and the way basically he changed the physics, it's like a boulder falling from the sky directly on them and just smashing them.
It's interesting he mentions another blasphemy. So it sounds like you're capable of doing these things.
It's the cutting the stone, yeah.
The cutting of the stone, all right. Yeah. I forgot. That's like the holy to them or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, he completely destroys them. Then the last lashing was that the spearmen, so it's like these guys come through with their spears. The spearmen threw and Szeth stood still, hand on the door frame. A reverse lashing required his constant touch, but took comparatively little stormlight. During one, anything that approached him, particularly lighter objects, was instead pulled toward the lashing itself. The spears veered into the air, splitting around him and slamming into the wooden frame. As he felt them hit, Szeth leaped into the air and lashed himself to the right wall, his feet hitting the stone with a slap. Then he just starts running down this wall, like fucking on the side of the wall, as these guys are just standing there after they just threw their spears at him, and he made the spears change directions, hit the wall. Then he jumps on the side of the wall and starts running down. Fucking kills two of them with his shard blade, then does a flip, fucking changes direction so that he lands directly in the middle of them, and then just 3 swipes kills every last one of them. It's like, what the fuck is this dude?
Yeah, this is the idea. So, I mean, all of it. If you're any of these guys, I mean, talk about scary. Jesus. I love the visual image of like him with all the spears coming at him and then just missing at the last moment. It's great.
Yeah, and then also like he one of the soldiers, he just simply cut his arm. And so his arm flopping uselessly on his shoulder, he would never be able to feel or use it again. So it like kills his arm, but it doesn't cut his arm off. It's just flopping uselessly. And so it doesn't kill him. Like you got to cut the spine or the head, something along those lines to kill him. But just slicing a leg or an arm, it just makes their arm or leg useless.
Sounds like the most serious version of dead arm I've ever heard of.
Yeah. Just but yeah, so dead you never can feel it again. Oh man, that's the worst too. Like have you ever had those times where you sleep on both your arms and then you're like laying on your chest and then you kind of wake up and you're kind of like panicked because you're like, I have my whole chest is almost fucking falling asleep. Like you almost want to scream for help to try to get, like roll over and get your arms free. It's kind of like, did I kill my arms? Did I cut off blood for so long I'm never going to be able to use my arms again? How long have I been sleeping like this?
Yeah, my body is now no longer under control.
But I mean, I feel like, if your arm's real floppy, if you get enough torque on your body, you can still like flap it out, smack people with it, get little slaps in. You could get pretty good at that. So you can still use it in fights. You just got to get enough torque with your body, enough turn. You can still use it.
Controlling it very well, but yeah, you can it's like a club.
Yeah. Probably not going to hit hard, but it's at least like, it's like a jab. A little jab, just a little distraction, a little 1-2.
I want to see this.
Yeah.
This ridiculous fighting style of just loose arms flopping around.
They have entire platoons where it's like all guys that feel like had limbs cut off and they just send those platoons against each other. So it's like the Black Knight and what's that fucking movie where he getting his arms shut off? Oh, bite your ankles.
Oh yeah. Holy Grail.
Yeah, the Holy Grail.
I'm picturing what I want to see is Jim Jeffries. You ever seen the clip where some guy comes on the stage and just starts beating him and he doesn't do anything? He just like tries to get out of the way, but just keeps getting hit. That's kind of the moment for the arm slap guy is someone who won't fight back no matter what. Or like Fight Club, where it's like, go pick a fight, but you're going to lose. That's when the slap guy, that's the most entertaining, where it's like someone who can't fight back and just trying to like get out of the way.
Yeah, it'd be a rough life, man, especially if you had both arms cut. Like, I mean, you're going to struggle. You probably got to do like the inflatable fucking doll man, like something like that, where you're just standing outside of a building. It's going to be a tough life. Not going to be fun.
Well,
Actually, you almost rather just not have them.
Now that you bring it up,
useless arms flopping around.
But this would be good for sign spinning. You just like literally attach to your hands. And you just like you just swing back and forth.
Can't even feel the hands anymore, so you could like nail something straight through it.
Well, you probably still want to bleed everywhere, but I love the idea of visualizing the sign spinner that just has a sign attached to their flailing arms.
So, I mean, yeah, you can come up with some jobs for these people. They're not totally done. But, yeah, and so then the guy with the shard blade, who obviously it turns out to be King Gavilar, but the guy comes out, like they see who he thinks is the king, kind of running with his head ducked, and they're just kind of running him out of the room. And then a guy with shard plate and a shard blade come out. And the shard plate, the advantage is it makes you, kind of stronger. You jump further, faster, you're quicker, and it's massive. It can block shard plate, so it's not just armor. It's an enhancing armor that enhances your natural abilities and to a significant degree. And then so you combine shard plate with a shard blade, and you are a very deadly foe.
Yes, it definitely seems like it.
Yeah, and then
this lashing seems to be a pretty big advantage.
Yeah. Being able to like fly and yeah, that would be a big advantage. And also like his lashings does not work against shard plate, so that's one thing that if you're fighting a guy like Szeth, you would want shard plate so that he can't fucking just touch your hand to you and just send you to the ceiling, or if you're outside, just fucking send you flying up into the air. And, you're just gonna keep going until like the stormlight runs out, and then you're gonna fall all the way back to the earth. So yeah, stormplate is significant in being able to defend yourself against him. But even still, the guy can fucking fly. So even if he can't do his lashings against you, he can still throw shit at you, and he can still like throw a boulder at you, and
he can still maneuver around you, and that's what ends up being the most important thing, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, instead of like jumping back, if the guy swings a sword at you and he could just change the gravitational pull so that he falls. So not only jumping back, but he could pull himself back with the gravity. So it's he can basically fly. And so it's very tough. And obviously, even though Gavilar seems like he's a very good swordsman and he's very skilled, he's very much outmatched by Szeth.
Well, and it's interesting that that's how Szeth realizes it's Gavilar, is because this guy's so good, right? Because when he's working around him, he's like, "Whoa, this dude like came within a finger of getting me." And then after, we can still get into it, but yeah, I mean that's kind of how he pieces it together.
Yeah, there's a couple great descriptions, like he zipped out of the way of the king's blow, then lashed himself forward with 2 basic lashings in a row. Stormlight flashed out of him, clothed freezing, as he was pulled towards the king at twice the speed of a normal fall. The king's posture indicated surprise as Szeth lurched in midair, then spun toward him, swinging. He slammed his blade into the king's helm, and immediately lashing himself to the ceiling and fell upward, slamming into the stone roof above. He lashed himself in too many directions too quickly, and his body had lost track, making it difficult to land gracefully. He stumbled back to his feet. So, I mean, like, the guy's flying and changing directions, and it would be extremely disorienting fighting someone like that. And so he's kind of pummeling the king. And also, we should mention that he knocks this dude out who he just thinks is a guard. Kind of knocks him down, and then he starts to take off after the king. And then once he notices that this guy's not chasing after him, then he's like, wait a minute, something's up. This guy should be able to get up and come after me. And then he's like what would be safer for the king? Just running around, running from me, or being in shard plate with a shard blade and playing possum. And so then he turns back around and he goes back after him, realizing it is the king. And so they get in this big battle. And then he gets to this part where he's like, the king used a one-handed swing, reaching for the ceiling. Szeth immediately lashed himself downward, judging that the king's attack would leave him unable to get his sword back in time. Szeth underestimated his opponent. The king stepped into Szeth's attack, thrusting his helm to absorb the blow. Just as Szeth hit the helm a second time, shattering it, Gavilar punched with his offhand, slamming his gauntleted fist into Szeth's face. Blinding light flashed in Szeth's eyes, a counterpoint to the sudden agony that crashed across his face. Everything blurred, his vision fading. Pain, so much pain. That
he decks him.
Yeah, and with shard plate,
if you prefer.
Yeah, and it's not even just like a male hand. It's a shard and proved power punch. So it's a much harder punch, like significantly harder punch, and a significantly sturdier plate, and it is crushing you in your fucking jaw, just shattering it.
It breaks his jaw. I love the move too, where he's outside and he's like, no time for pain and blah blah blah. But he comes to and he's like, wait, am I blind? It's like, oh, it's dark.
I'm outside.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Like that switch, pretty cool.
Yeah, and I like to the way it ends. It's great because he's pretty fucked up at this point, and then so when Gavilar's coming at him to try to finish him off, like he just lashes the balcony to the ground. He changes.
He does it like 5 times or something.
Yeah. So he's like fucking really pushing it so that it is falling at, the gravitational pull is significantly more. And then once Gavilar steps on it and he does it the 5th time, he just falls. And then instead of him falling to the ground, he lashes himself to the wall, the outside of the building. And now that becomes the ground for him. Like, what do you do against this guy?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say earlier. I mean, when you're throwing your spears at him, that won't hit. He's going up the wall. It's like, dude, what the? So yeah, the shard plate is the only one that has. Because I thought about it too. I mean, when you think about it, you're like, it's kind of a big risk, right? I get that he's playing possum. He doesn't go with the group, but they can't do anything. Like, there's nothing they can do to stop this guy.
Yeah.
So it is the best chance apparently that he has, and didn't work out.
No, and man, what a brutal fucking fight, and just a crazy intense fight to start out the book. I mean, it's nuts.
It's awesome visually and action wise, and world building on top of it. We get how the magic works. We get some different cultural stuff. I mean, there's so much that's packed in this. It's tremendous.
Yeah, and we also get that the shard plate would have protected him from a fall, but Szeth had cut a large gash in the shard plate. He had hit the same spot on his side a couple times and broke the shard plate there. And so
that's what got him to fall the first time. And then he gets impaled by it, right? Yeah.
So when he falls, something impales him through that hole. Like, talk about bad luck. Fucking fell just at the wrong fucking angle. Like, got you other in your head that was obviously wide open too. Like, that was the only spot that could kill him because the shard plate would have protected him from the fall. Probably would have been screwed anyways because, as the stormlight leaks out of that shard plate, it becomes more and more unwieldy. It's harder to move in it. Like, you get stuck in this thing and someone's got to pull it off of you. So once he hit the ground, he's pretty much screwed at that point because that shard plate is jacked. But yeah, then he comes down, fucking sucks the some of the stormlight out of the shard plate from the guy and starts healing his face.
Gemstones.
So you get that he's able to heal his wounds. Yeah. And he's like, it's not going to do it immediately, but in a couple of hours I'll be all right. So he's able to just heal himself with stormlight as well.
yeah, it's pretty badass, man.
So, like, when you find that out, then you're like, well, Jesus Christ, what would you do? Like, because you could have stabbed him, and that ain't gonna fucking kill him. Like, the only thing, like, he mentions that only thing he really can't heal from is if Shardblade cut him. So there's really only one guy that could have fucking taken him out. At least if he has access to Stormlight, because he can just fucking heal himself.
Yeah.
So, like, even if you get a lucky blow, it's going to do nothing for you.
I was going to say, he's too quick to get touched.
Yeah.
You know, and he's doing everything to avoid that. And even if you do get, like you said, even if you do get a blow on him, he's able to heal it up anyway. This guy's a hard one to deal with, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a rough one. And then he goes down and he sees King Gavilar, and Gavilar tells him, you can tell Thedekar that he's too late. I don't know who that is, Szeth said, standing, his words slurring from his broken jaw. He held his hand to the side, resuming his resummoning his shard blade. The king frowned. Then who? Ristares? Sadeas? I never thought. My masters are the Parshendi, Szeth said. 10 heartbeats passed, and his blade dropped into his hand, wet with condensation. The Parshendi? That makes no sense. So, obviously, you don't know who these guys are. You met Sadeas, who's, up there with Dalinar, is like kind of the king, his son Elkar, the current king. They're basically kind of his elders and his right hand men. Kind of helping him rule the kingdom. Thedekar, you don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff with him, but you got to get further in the books and other things. There's can't really go into them, but I got a lot to say on Thedekar, but it doesn't make any sense at this point with where you're at, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about it when more information comes across. Same thing with Ristares. Those are two characters we're going to learn much more about.
Yeah, Sadeas was the only name, or Sadeas, however you say it, that I recognize, and I just remember Wit. Tearing him up verbally. Looking forward to getting that.
Yeah, it's just great. I love Wit. Yeah, and then so he pulls out a small crystalline sphere tied to a chain. He must take this. They must not get it. He seemed dazed. Tell my brother he must find the most important words a man can say. Szeth hesitated, then knelt down and took the sphere. It was odd, unlike any he had seen before. Though it was completely dark, it seemed to glow somehow, with a light that was black. So we don't know much about that. Obviously nothing at this point, and it's going to be a while before we really have any kind of information on that. So again, we'll eventually be able to talk more about that, but at this point we don't know what's going on there. And then he's like, I like the way it kind of ends, because Szeth's a pretty fucking dark dude. And a very depressed guy. And he's like, nothing makes sense anymore, Szeth whispered, tucking the strange fear away. It's all unraveling. I am sorry, King of the Lethe. I doubt that you care. Not anymore, at least. He stood up. At least you won't have to watch the world ending with the rest of us. And then beside the king's body, his shard blade materialized from mist, clattering to the stones now that his master was dead. So once you die, your shard blade comes back into existence. You don't have to call it anymore. It just appears back, and it's no longer, disappearing and, only appearing when you summon it. So that's another little world building piece of information.
Makes that's a nice, very convenient for the video game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it would suck that, if they die and they didn't have it summoned, that it's just gone. Because those lights seem pretty fucking sweet, and they don't know how to make new ones. So seems like a pretty valuable thing. And like they say, it was worth a fortune. Kingdoms had fallen as men tried to vie to possess a single shard blade. Shouts of alarm came from inside the palace. Szeth needed to go. But tell my brother, to Szeth's people, a dying request was sacred. He took the king's hand, dipping it in the man's own blood, then used it to scrawl on the wood. Brother, you must find the most important words a man can say. With that, Szeth escaped into the night. He then left the king's shard blade. He had no use for it. The blade Szeth already carried was curse enough.
Yeah, so
huge missed opportunity. Curse. Well, huge missed opportunity, because he could have wrote anything with that message. He agreed to write the message, but he did not he did not say that he wouldn't write something else too. Huge missed opportunity. He could have really messed with old Dalinar.
I mean, there's quite a few things here. The most important words a man can say. I was thinking, "You're welcome," or
Yeah.
"I know."
Give
the
me
old Han Solo. I know.
Give me. It's mine. I want.
I love the mixture of like this dude dying. You just killed me. Tell whoever that they're late. I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
And then you're like coming up your last words,
Yeah.
and he's just like, "Yeah, the world's bleak.
I
man.
know.
Nothing
I
makes
know who
sense."
sent you. I know exactly what you're doing here. I expected this. Tell your master, Thadakar. It's too late. I don't know who the fuck that is, man. What? Well, now I'm confused. Now I'm going out confused.
I love, and then he's like got the chain. He's like, "Tell my brother," and then he's just like, "Yeah, nothing makes sense anymore, man. It's just, I'm sorry, but it's like, dude, what the fuck, man? You're killing me, and you're just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Parshendi?
At least you don't have to see the world end.
Not only do you kill me, like you just shatter my illusion of like me knowing why the shit's happening. I'm going out completely confused. It's kind of a dick move, man.
Yeah. His last words end up just being, "God, dude, you suck."
Yeah.
You suck. What the fuck, man?
His last words should have been that the Szeth, my last words are to tell my brother who you are and where you live and where he can find you so that he can kill you. So and he has to abide by the guy's last wishes. So
I guess you did. You were right though. He did miss an opportunity because he could have wrote with his blood on the wall, "Tell my brother, you're a jerk. I know you took my car that time," or whatever. "You're a jerk. I know what you did.
I saw what you did. I was so gross. It was so gross." I told everybody. Everybody talks about it behind your back. Like, what the fuck did he tell him? I told everybody. We've all been laughing at you.
All right. What the? So the rest of his life, he's just, it's in the back of his mind, in the front of his mind.
Yeah. Yeah, big missed opportunity. Man, but it's tough. We just tried to come up with stuff and all of them bombed. They were all stupid ideas. So
no, those are great.
Yeah.
Those are great.
Yeah. All right, but that's all I got on that chapter. And then we get to meet old Stormblessed guy.
I was gonna say though, it does there are a couple moments that do make it feel like Shardblade is like a bad guy's weapon. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Well,
like,
I mean, he considers them cursed, but I mean, the king has them. It seems like people have them. Like it's and Dalinar has it. His son has it. Elgar has one. Like, I mean,
it's not fair, is what I'm saying.
No, it's not. It's definitely not a fair weapon. No, it's a huge advantage.
Fair fight. Yeah. But no, I mean that I just had a couple notes like that, but no, I think that's it. All I had for the chapter.
All right, so chapter 1 is titled Stormblessed, and in this chapter we're going to meet Kaladin and his crew, his men, and there's going to be a big battle, a skirmish between two groups that are both part of the Alethi kingdom, and it's pretty brutal. It's another fucking brutal chapter in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Just keep going from fucking a individual skirmish to big ass, a medium sized battle.
The build up for Kaladin's really interesting. Like to show him with this sort of mystique, right? And how he's like, he's such an interesting character.
His men hold him in like this. They have this reverence for him.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like a mystique towards towards why he does what he does, what he attempts to do. Yeah, it's pretty great. And then also getting it from the perspective of this kid, right, who's freaking terrified.
Yeah, and to start the chapter, we get "You've killed me, bastards, you've killed me. While the sun is still hot, I die. Collected on the 5th day of the week, Shash of the month, Batab of the year 1171, 10 seconds before death. Subject was a dark-eyed soldier, 31 years of age. Sample is considered questionable. 5 years later." So this is 5 years after Szeth whacked the king. So we go from 4,500 years jump to 5-year jump. So it's a really big jump, and then another pretty kind of big jump. But I like it starts off with you get this whole chapter from this young kid's perspective, and this is first battle, which I think is kind of interesting because you're getting obviously Kaladin's. I love fucking Kaladin too. He's such a great fucking character, but one of my favorite characters I've ever read. But it's interesting getting the first chapter from some like young recruit who's just new to this. It's his first battle, and you're introduced to Kaladin through his eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, through him, and then like learning about Kaladin through Dalit, and then also how Kaladin helps and cares for Sin, even treating his wound and all that. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And then also seeing him fight, where it seems like, I guess we don't get a piece that like he's lashing or something, but the way he fights, it sounds like it's on another level.
Yeah.
Of course, that's towards the end of the chapter.
Yeah. And so like you get like the, he's terrified when he gets there. He's like, the first words from him, "I'm going to die, aren't I?" And then, Dalit's like, "How old are you, son?" And then tries to kind of calm him down. He's like, "You'll be fine. You're in Kaladin Stormblessed crew." And he's like, you'll be fine. Trust me. But the kid's like looking, and he's like, many of the Light Eyes had full suits of armor. They sat astride horses, their honor guards clustering around them with breastplates that gleamed burgundy and deep forest green. Were there shard blades among them? Bright Lord Amaran wasn't a shard bearer. Were any of his men? What if Sin had to fight one? Ordinary men didn't kill shard bearers. It had happened so infrequently that each occurrence was now legendary. So, I mean, that lays out the fact that if you got a shard blade, you're a very fucking tough dude to kill because you can't block it. You would have to just dodge it, and especially if they have a shard blade with shard plate, like they're almost invincible against just like a regular fucking dude, especially one-on-one. Like, what are you gonna fucking do?
Well, and even with him, it goes far enough where it's just like, dude, I'm not ready for this. I've had hardly any training. It's like, he does a very good job of putting you in the mind of a new recruit, so to speak. And the whole thing, I mean, just like, well, this isn't what I expected. That's not what I expected. I thought it would be like this. And luckily, Dalit's there helping him along. And then you get that Kaladin even picked this kid. And he's just like, why me? It's really interesting. It says a lot about Kaladin, obviously.
Yeah, and Dalit's Sin's in full panic mode, and Dalit's trying to calm him down. He's like, "I'm gonna die, aren't I?" No, Dalit had a gruff voice, but somehow that was comforting. "You're going to be just fine. Keep your head on straight. Stay with the squad." "But I've barely had 3 months training. I can barely hold this sphere. Stormfather, I'm dead. I can't. Son." Dalit interrupted, soft but firm. "You're going to be fine. How can you know?" It came out as a plea. "Because, lad, you're in Kaladin Stormblessed squad." The other soldiers nearby nodded in agreement. So it introduces Kaladin as he's extremely revered, to the point where they're just like going into this battle and they're like, "Yeah, we're fine. We're in his crew." Like, what the fuck does that matter? You're going to fight a war.
Yeah, it's really cool because we're getting this explanation build up, and we don't know if he's just trying to make him feel better. But when we get the rest of the squad like nodding their heads, and it's like, oh, so there is something unique about Kaladin's Stormblessed, this whole thing, and then we get to actually see that play out and to see where that comes from.
Yeah, I like the part where he's like, "Did you piss before we form ranks?"
Yeah,
"I didn't have time to. Go now. If you don't, you'll end up with it running down your leg in the battle, distracting you, maybe killing you. Do it." He's like, you're about to go fight a war, and this kid's like, "Are they gonna laugh at me?" Like, dude, you gotta take a piss, man. These guys are ready to go fucking start killing people. They'll be okay.
And nobody smirked.
No. Well, maybe he had a really big wang, so like they were impressed. Like, hey, God,
wang.
Hey, kid.
This kid's gonna be okay.
Yeah, this kid, he's gonna fit right in.
Jeez.
But yeah, maybe that's why they're all so confident. They're fucking walking into battle with huge hogs. So then Kaladin comes walking up and says, a man walked through our ranks carrying a short spear that had 2 leather knife sheaths strapped to the haft. The newcomer was a young man, perhaps 4 years older than Sin's 15, but he was taller by several fingers than even Dalit. He wore common leathers of the spearmen, but under them was a pair of dark trousers. That wasn't supposed to be allowed. His black Alethi hair was shoulder length and wavy. His eyes were dark brown. He also had knots of white cord on his shoulders of his jerkin, marking him as a squad leader. The 30 men around Sin snapped to attention, raising their spears in salute. This is Kaladin Stormblessed, Sin thought incredulously. This youth? So, because you forget sometimes how young Kaladin is, because you don't realize this dude's like 19 years old. And
yeah, that's
he's
nuts,
leading
man.
this crew.
Yeah. Yeah, that's surprising. I didn't remember that from the first read through, going through it again. I was going to mention, though, we kind of went past it, but before he took a piss, small fear spren, like globs of purplish goo, began to climb up out of the ground and gather around his feet. I remember this was where I started to get a little clearer what the spren was, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, you're getting it in little pieces, and then it's like, oh, okay. So it's like, it's there in these moments, you know. It's a really interesting thing that he created with the spren.
Yeah, and so yeah, you're like, is it reacting to his fear or is it creating his fear? Like, I mean, you don't
taking part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't know if it's like causing it or reacting to it or exactly what's going on with it, but there's obviously something along those lines is going on with spren, and there's different kinds. Like I said, you know, there's the music spren, the fear spren, like there's a bunch of different types of spren. And you also learn that Kaladin paid good money to get the boy. So he paid for this kid who's never been in a battle before. And the kid's like, why? Why would anybody pay for me? Like, I've never fought before. And he's basically useless in this fight. I mean, their whole thing is just like, you know, hey, just fucking keep this kid on your hip and just keep him safe, because he's not going to know what the hell's going on. He's not going to be able to help us. But, you know, I paid good money for him. So and you later learn on, like, Dalit tells him, like, you know, he does this with young kids. Like, I think it, you know, remind him of someone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really well, and then we find out later it's like all these people end up dead, and it weighs on Kaladin like massive weight. But he's always trying to do, you know, it's like he's trying to do good. What I thought was super interesting in terms of Kaladin is the fact that he pays the runners to take care of his men.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another reason why they're like, we're all going to be fine. We'll be fine because we actually get cared for. So they can be confident that they can actually fight because someone will actually be treating their wounds when the time comes. Seems like that's not normal in these little skirmishes they're fighting in. Which is another interesting element where it's like Kaladin, he seems like he should be a lot higher in the ranks than he is.
Yeah, you would think so. Like, I mean, they're like the guys talking. He's like, "We'll be fine." Squad leader Kaladin is lucky. The soldier on the other side of Sin nodded. He was a lengthy, red-haired Vaden. Ugh, red hair, gross ginger. With darker tan skin than the Alethi. Why was he fighting in the Alethi army? That's right, Kaladin. He's Stormblessed. Right, sure he is. We only lost what? One man last battle, but someone did die. Sin said. Dalit shrugged. People always die. Our squad loses the fewest. You'll see. So, I mean, you are getting, like, I mean, he's yeah, he's very accomplished. Where they lost one man in the last battle, they lose fewer than everybody else. You see them when they're fighting. They fight in organized, tight knit group.
Mm-hmm.
They're following instructions. They're a guy gets stabbed in the leg and he wraps it up. He knows how to take care of it. And then he just kind of falls to the back of the group and falls into a less dangerous position. So then they shift and put the guys that are like a little injured in less dangerous positions, but they keep fighting. Then he's paying for people to come and care for his wounded. He's bribing them. So,
well, and it stands out as very significant as well because the rest is just chaos.
Yeah.
Nobody else is fighting in an organized fashion. And the fact that they are organized intimidates who they're going against. And people aren't even trying to take them on, it sounds like.
When they do, they come running up at them and like a couple guys get killed right away. And they're like, all right, fuck this. Let's go find someone else.
Yeah, let's go find something easier that we can take on. Yeah.
These guys are like, I mean, it's like the Roman, the wall like they would create kind of thing where, you can't get past them when they're all set up like that. And you also get the fact like, when the battle starts and they start running, like, and they're running full speed, they're the only ones without their shields out and they're just dead sprinting. And Sen's like, what the fuck are we doing? Awesome. We're going to get slaughtered. And then like the arrows come flying and he's expecting the arrows just come crashing down on them, but they go over their heads and hit the larger chunk of the crew. And then you find out like, oh yeah, that's why they were sprinting. They want to make sure that they're not part of the large group that's going to get targeted. They want to be separate, a smaller group away from the glob of people because the archers are obviously going to shoot at the glob because that's where the arrows are going to hit the most.
Dude, the way he writes it's so great too because Sin literally has to fight himself. His body wants to put a shield up. Like he can't. It's difficult for him to not do it, it's a great way to be able to read it because the fact that he's fighting it, it's like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, and then you find out why. It's a really cool little like payoff.
And also too, we should mention like this battle is between two Alethi groups. It's two people of the same kingdom. So like you really get the sense of like they're not off on the Shattered Plains where Dalinar and Elhokar and Sadeas and them are fighting the Parshendi. They're at their home kingdom. And so these are not seasoned warriors. They're not the best men. They're young. They're untrained. But they're fighting each other over little border skirmishes. So you get a sense that the Alethi are a very warlike society where war is just a part of their life.
I was going to say, it seems like this is very normal. Like they just get in, they just have battles all the time because it's a little land skirmish or whatever. They're skirmishing over BS basically, but somebody has to do it apparently in their world, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and so Kaladin's group has a significant advantage against everybody else because Kaladin has trained them. They are organized. They're fighting as a group where everybody else is just kind of fucking wild, running, screaming, barreling in, just running wild, like no formations or anything. Like the formations immediately evaporate other than his crew. And so it's chaos, but then he has trained his group. So, I mean, like it just should, like this guy should be in a much higher position than he is. He's wildly underutilized where he's currently at.
Well, and the fact that the group naturally protects Sen, I think that's how you say Sen, where they're naturally protecting him, kind of makes you question, like, so what is it? What's up with this kid? I mean, as a reader on the first time through, you're like, why? Like, what's going on here? Eventually, obviously, we find out. But yeah, it shows you that Kaladin's underutilized in the sense of how they're forming and how, he's literally like training people on his own. It doesn't seem like he's being told to do these things. But then you also have Kaladin like banging signals, with his spear on his shield. So there is more organization with what they're doing than it seems like anywhere else around them.
And it sets up Kaladin as obviously he is very much concerned with protecting his crew. that is extremely important to him, to the point where he's got them trained to, not, if you get hurt, go to the back, protect this young kid. He doesn't know how to fight, so keep him out of shit. When the battle starts to break for his side and they have to go run off to another area to kind of regroup, and the kid gets lost and runs towards the enemy, thinking he's running towards, his own crew, and he just gets lost in the chaos, and he gets stabbed in the leg, and he's about to get killed, and then Kaladin just comes out of nowhere and fights 6 dudes and just fucking tears them up. And he just wrecks these 6 dudes. Say.
Because you get that build up where it's already like this guy's on another level, and then that happens, and you're like, whoa, this dude is clearly very much on another level, where he's coming in and just like laying waste to these guys, and in a really pretty badass way as well.
Yeah, it's like he didn't flinch, he charged. It happened so quickly. Kaladin swept the feet from beneath the man who'd stabbed Sin. Even as the man fell, Kaladin reached up and flipped a knife from one of the sheaths tied about his spear. His hand snapped, knife flashing and hitting the thigh of a second foe. The man fell to one knee, screaming. A third man froze, looking at his fallen ally as Kaladin shoved past a wounded enemy and slammed his spear into the gut of a third man. A fourth man fell with a knife to the eye. When did Kaladin grab that knife? He spun between the last two, his spear a blur, wielding it like a quarterstaff. For a moment, Sim thought he could see something surrounding the squad leader, a warping of the air, like the wind itself becoming visible. I've lost a lot of blood. It's flowing out so quickly. He didn't even know what he's seeing. I'm guessing what he's seeing is the spren that Kaladin eventually meets.
My mind, because of what we just read, went to lashing. But I know we don't see there's no light orbs and shit. But my note was, it almost seemed like that could be the case because of the warping of the air. But
she's, that spren is described as kind of like that. But like you can't.
Well, then we find out that she was with him too.
Yeah,
we find that out later. Yeah.
So that's my best guess, is that's what's going on. Is it's his spren was fucking rolling with him as he's rolling through dudes. But I like that. But then, like, and Dalek comes up to him after that, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "You had me worried there for a second." So it's not only that Kaladin protected this kid. Kaladin put himself. He ran away from his crew and left them behind to go protect this one kid who can't fucking fight. He's of no value to you. He just got stabbed in the leg. He's not going to be able to fight for a while now. He already couldn't fight. Yeah, couldn't defend himself at all. He tried to stab a dude and got immediately shit blocked and got stabbed in the leg. So he's not much value to you as a fighter. And Kaladin risks his life to the point where he's 1 against 6 and left his crew behind for them to come scrambling to try to catch up to him and help him. And he just lays waste to these guys. It just shows like how committed he is to protecting his crew. Mm-hmm. Which sets up the fact that when you find out all of them get killed, all of them die, like how devastating that would be to Kaladin. Like it's not just, these are not expendable men to him. Like he's willing to put his life on the line for the least valuable of their crew. He's willing to die for that kid, to protect him, to keep him alive. And all of his men get fucking killed.
Yeah, that's it explains why he's in such a fragile state when we meet him in the next or whatever coming chapter, where he's broken, and this, I guess, this tells us as to why or how he got there. But yeah, I mean, again, it makes him. He even treats the wound.
Yeah,
like this dude's fucking badass, man.
Yeah, he treats the wound, and even like he's doing it, and as one of the guys that he had knocked down or stabbed or something starts to get up to come after him, he's just wrapping the wound and expects Dalek to just come to his aid. Like he knows his men very well. Dalek comes and fucking takes care of the dude, but then they see the basically one of the Light Eyes that's probably the leader of the other group. They at least suspect he is. And the kid thing is like, is that guy in shard plate? They mention like, no shard plate's going to be wasted here. So they're dead wrong. They're going to find out they're dead wrong real quick. But they're like, yeah, no shard plate would be wasted here. And you get Kaladin watched the Light Eyes with a seething hatred. It was the same hatred Sin's father had shown when he'd spoken of Chol rustlers, or the hatred Sin mother would display when someone mentioned Kusuri, who had run off with the cobbler's son. Sub-squads 2 and 3, pincer pattern, Kaladin said, his voice hard. We're taking a bright lord off his throne. You sure that's wise, sir? We've got wounded. Kaladin turned towards Dalit. That's one of Hollow's officers. He might be the one. You don't know that, sir. Regardless, he's about battalion lord. If we kill an officer that high, we're all but guaranteed to be in the next group to the Shattered Plains. We're taking him. And then he's like, imagine it, Dalit. Real soldiers, a war camp with discipline and Light Eyes with integrity, a place where our fighting will mean something. Ooh, that's a rough statement when you find out, like, when he gets there. Like, and you know, he does not experience the Light Eye integrity that he's expecting.
Well, and then also, I mean, this is where we get, I mean, this guy's killing it, right?
Yeah.
Seems like he's the best. He's above his position here. You know, he's excelling to a degree that I guess he should be in this other position. And this gives us a reason why, like what he's shooting for, and the fact that he's being underutilized. But yeah, unfortunately, once we find out, didn't really work out like he had hoped. But
yeah,
I like that he's willing to go for it. Like,
he rolls this dude. I mean, he goes and like gets this guy and immediately, stabs him in his eye and then knocks him to the ground and then jumps up and fucking murders him.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's all about the stabbing in the eye. That's twice.
Yeah,
it's 8 people that we've seen him kill.
Well, it's a solid move. It would hurt. You don't want to get stabbed in the eye. I don't know, like if
you don't.
If you've ever been in a fight, like one thing you don't want to have happen is someone to stab you in the eye. That you want to avoid that. Don't let that happen to you. You'll lose the fight if that happens.
You know what? That's good advice. I've never been stabbed in the eye, but I'm gonna vouch for that advice. I think it's good.
Read a lot of books, and eye stabs never work out for the guy that gets stabbed in the eye. Always bad for him.
We do get a little piece of like the battlefield communications where they have like, there is some organization to a degree where they pulled a long red ribbon from his pocket, attached it to his spear, and then held it, letting the ribbon flap in the wind. So it's basically calling for runners to carry wounded. Yeah. And then that's when we kind of get that fed in where Dalit pays for them, basically covering his soldiers. Pays, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Kaladin pays, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the why Dalit Sin repeated, feeling urgent. Why bring me into his squad? Why me? Dalit shook his head. It's just how he is. Hates the thought of young kids like you, barely trained, going to battle. Every now and again, he grabs one and brings him into his squad. A good half dozen of our men were once like you. Dalit's eyes got a far-off look. I think you all remind him of someone. Then, you get the pain spren. And he leans back, staring up at the sky. He could hear faint thunder. That was odd. The sky was cloudless. Dalit cursed. Sin turned, shocked out of his stupor. Galloping directly toward them was a massive black horse bearing a rider in gleaming armor that seemed to radiate light. The armor was seamless, no chain underneath, just smaller plates, incredibly intricate. The figure wore an unornamented full helm, and the plate was gilded. He carried a massive sword in one hand, fully as long as a man was tall. It was beautiful, like a work of art. Sin had never seen a shard bearer, but he knew immediately what this was. How could he ever have mistaken a simple armored Light Eyes for one of these majestic creatures? And then it goes real bad for him.
Yeah, it looks like. Wait, does he die here?
Yeah, he says either way he couldn't fight. He didn't fight something like this. Sun gleamed against the plate, armor, and that gorgeous, intricate, sinuous sword. It was like the Almighty himself had taken form to walk the battlefield. And why would you want to fight the Almighty? Sin closed his eyes.
They basically gave up, this dude.
Yeah, because I think he probably could have took that guy out with the shard plate and shard blade. Why he can't walk and he has no weapon. Could have at least, tried to punch him in the face or something.
Yeah, a minute
poke
ago.
his eyes through the eye shield.
A minute ago,
Double
when he
poke.
barely did the spear thing, and the guy just casually brushed it away and stabbed him. Yeah, I think he's a hustler. He was basically
you gotta be like
he
you
can't
gotta
fight.
yell out like, "Hey, wait before you kill me! I have something to tell you. Quick, lean in." And double poke fucking Three Stooges right in the eyes. Double poke through the visor.
Ow! Why would you do that? Yeah, I don't think it doesn't seem like he stood much of a chance here. No. Unfortunately.
No, you're not.
So he was right.
You're not. Yeah.
He was
Might
right
as well
the whole
just
time.
lay back.
He was right at the beginning. I'm gonna die. He was right.
Yeah, and they all lied to him. Fucking assholes.
Yeah, you're gonna be fine.
You'll be fine.
Yeah,
just watch. You just wait and see. I think I'm gonna die.
No, you'll be fine. And at the
Yeah.
end, it's like, yeah, dude was right the whole time. He sucked. Terrible fighter.
But yeah, and you know what? Well, because chapter 2 is such a long one, and with where we're at, I think we'll roll into chapter 2 on next episode.
Right on.
Because I got a lot to say on that, and it'll quickly turn into a 4-hour episode if we go into chapter 2.
I'm definitely looking forward to to reading more of the books. Like I said, or the book, I've gotten to like 15, and
yeah, I can't wait until you get through book 1, especially get through part 4. Like, the one thing about like this series that is just phenomenal is he builds these things. He's lays a lot of groundwork in the beginning, a lot of world building, a lot of character development. And then, I wouldn't even say it's a slow burn, because I mean, you go into this and it's desolation, massive fight in the corridors where crazy shit's going on, big battle. And then, then it slows down a little bit in chapter 2, where you kind of start getting some character development and some world building, but it's fucking crazy. And
yeah, with Shallan and stuff, it builds the world out in a way that you definitely feel like you understand it more. It's not all battles, and that's kind of important to be able to make this more realistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it opens up the world, takes you off of the first, basically the first 4 chapters after through chapter 2, very bleak, and then Shallan's a much more upbeat, upbeat, different feel. It's like completely different than the feel you get in the first 4 chapters. Starts to lighten up a little bit, because Kaladin's very fucking bleak in chapter 2. It's very fucking bleak. I mean, as dark as the first 3 chapters you go across are, chapter 2 is even darker.
Well, it's interesting too as we read Shallan, and then because it is lighter to a degree, and she has things she's working towards, but even in that, we even find out that even that is underhanded. I mean, she's got a dark purpose at the end of it.
Yeah,
so even what seems lighter is not so much.
Yeah, it's a heavy series. I mean, there's a lot of lightheartedness to it, and it's a series that you could see why like a lot of high school kids would really fucking love this series. It's not like it's not pretentious at all, even though it is fucking heavy. But it's good. He ends with such awesome crescendos.
It's super imaginative. I mean, just the thing that attracted me initially, and just reading the first group of chapters that I got through, was, I mean, Kaladin is, especially in the next chapter, he's such an enigmatic, interesting character. The shit he puts up with, and that what he's capable of, and the fact that he's just being held down. I mean, any position like that, you're very much endeared to the character. But just, I mean, what initially got me sold was that Szeth chapter. I mean, just the physics, the way the world works, the way it's built out. It's great. I like how the grass comes out and then hides. Just those little things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, so I guess next week we'll probably do like the probably get through 2 through chapter 4. Chapter 2 through chapter 4 would be my guess. So we'll get Kaladin as a slave, then we'll get Shallan, and then we'll get the finishing of his trip in the slave caravan where he's brought to the Shattered Plains. And then
is that before the bridge?
Yeah, Bridge
stuff?
4 is chapter 6. That's a real long chapter. So
super great.
Yeah, I mean, most of these episodes, I mean, it's going to be hard to do unless we want to like really short shrift the discussions, like, I mean, and not do like a super deep dive into the books. Yeah, I mean, you can't do a ton of chapters in a single episode. So we'll probably get through the next 3 chapters in this next episode, and then like episode 3 might only be a couple chapters, chapter 5 and chapter 6. But yeah, Bridge 4, when we get to that's an intense chapter.
That's another example when I think about if you made this into a show, made it into a movie, you're gonna majorly short the opportunity. I mean, you'd have to cut out so much. I haven't read much through it, but obviously, yeah, the Bridge 4 stuff. I mean, that could be so great. That could be so great visually.
It's very much like
Character building, like
a Spartan slave type type of thing. I mean, and just not so much Spartacus in the sense like of training to be a gladiator, but just the physical torment that they're put through, and same type of thing. That, I mean, they're being put through some bullshit just to do this task.
I love the visualization, just like picturing the POV shots of having this big, massive piece of wood on top of you, and then you're just trying to move this thing. Like, just what that, like, the chapter is amazing. I've never really quite read anything quite like that.
Well, I'm like,
awesome.
I'm not in my peak shape right now. So like, if I had to do like like a 20-minute hard workout, like a real hard cardio, fucking intensive workout, lots of fucking burpees and, jump squats and, lifting, kettlebell lifts and that kind of shit. And like, you're just going interval training type of thing. Like, dude, I'm going to be absolutely gassed in 20 minutes.
Yes.
Absolutely gassed. And like, but like, he's put in this kind of position where he's underfed. He's not getting good exercise rolling in that slave.
He's not getting good
caravan.
Warm-ups.
No.
Yeah, they're not giving him time to warm up. But he's 19, right? So,
yeah. They just kind of throw him out there and like, all right, well, here's like a 12-hour hardest workout you could possibly do.
And we're going to try to kill you along.
Oh, and by the way, we're not going to give you shoes. We're not going to give you a shirt.
Shit. So, and we're going to start shooting arrows at you.
Yeah. And everybody around you, they're fucking dead. That guy you just met that was kind of nice to you? Yeah, he's dead.
I love the, and then also no direction. Talk about no shoes and no shirt, no direction.
Yeah.
It's just yelling at you to like, pick it up.
Yeah.
And then run. And it's like, what? Huh? You're just kind of catching on, like going with the momentum, trying to not get trampled.
That's such a great part in that book when he's like going through that. He's like, pick it up, run, stop, set it down, die. He's like, I added the last part myself.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty brutal. It is pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's why like I posted a meme today, which for anybody listening to the podcast is going to be, a meme in the past where it's a girl just waylaying a dude, boxing gloves, just waylaying this dude in the nuts. And so like the meme is like I put under the girl Brandon Sanderson, and for the guy I just put Kaladin. So that's pretty much how Sanderson writes old Kaladin. Just like, how can I fucking torture the shit out of this dude?
Well, and what's very strange about it, the meme itself, the dude clearly seemed to have voluntarily decided to do this.
No, he didn't really. Yeah, but he's just kind of like laying back, just taking it. And Kaladin pretty much, accepts his lot. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying though, he gets bashed in his nuts for a long while, then eventually goes down like, "Oh, yeah, you got me."
Yeah, it's like about the 20th. It's about the 20th blow to the old testes that this guy's like, enough. That finally hurt.
I mean, there is a delay. The pain is immediate, and there's it's a very strange circumstance. It's been a while since I've got hit in the balls, thankfully, but there's a nausea. There's waves of nausea. There's
I'm tapping out after the first one, but to each their own.
Grazing, not even a hit, a grazing. I'm tapping out immediately. Like the whole world stops.
The best is like towards the end of the gift, the girl is just like straight uppercutting him like as hard as she can. Where it's like, holy shit, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. You're just letting some girl fucking tee off on your nuts like that?
Yeah, it's brutal. Very strange. Very strange. This guy is this is one of those dudes that like he probably has the back piercings with the hooks and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same dude.
It worked for the meme, so it was a good meme for me.
You mean Mimi? Does it works for the Mimi?
Yep. That's exactly what I meant. Yeah. That's how the kids say it these days.
I've only seen that word written, so
Yeah. Mimi, yeah. Yeah. I've only seen that word written.
Well, until next time, Mimi. Mimi, send some memes and Mimi.
Yep.
Here.
All right. So we'll see you guys in a couple weeks, and in between, you can check out our King Killer episodes, King Killer Chronicle episodes. Got a lot of those
King
stacked
Killer.
up. Moving into Wise Man's Fear on that series.
Just a fair warning, be prepared to have the nips blasted and probably going to poop your pants a few times.
Yeah, we should have warned you guys like before this episode. I don't know if we had like a real bad nipple blast moment, but fair warning, like when we do these episodes, nips are flying, popping off, and gonna feel like Artemis blasting your nips, and a lot of shit pants moments.
Those will really more come once I get through the books, and you can conjecture out.
Yeah,
that's where a lot of the shit pants moments come from. It's the connections that people haven't made. Yeah.
Once we can really dive in, it's gonna be a lot of shit pants and nipple blasts.
But there's a lot of it in the King Killer Chronicles episodes. So just, be prepared. Maybe diaper up or, just wear something that you're okay with soiling.
All right, guys. See you in a couple weeks. Peace out.
Right on.